So, same time next week?
Well, of course.
Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds. At highway speeds, that's enough time to travel the length of a football field. Stop the texts, stop the wrecks.
Hello, what do you say, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, friends and neighbors? It is Monday, June 29. Good to see you today, and welcome to the Bill Press Show. I hope you had a great weekend, ready to dive into the news of the week, and I got to tell you what a week it has been. We're here with you, by the way, of course, on Free Speech TV and worldwide on our video stream, youtube.com/TawkrTV. Yep, we progressives will never see another week like we had last week. 3 huge victories. First, we saw the Confederate flag fall in the South. It won't be back. It'll be in museums where it belongs, alongside of statues of many of the leaders of the Confederacy. And a big victory again for conservatives and a big loss for conservatives. For progressives and a big loss for conservatives. The other victory, of course, on Thursday, the judges on the Supreme Court, 6-3, standing up to affirm Obamacare, that subsidies should be extended to those who otherwise could not afford health insurance for their families. Those subsidies should be extended to people in all 50 states. Again, a huge loss for conservatives. A big victory for President Obama and for progressives nationwide. And then Friday, 5-4, the Supreme Court saying, yes, equal rights under the Constitution, including the right to love the one you love and to marry the one you love, should be nationwide in all 50 states. God bless America. What another great victory. And by the way, icing on the cake, Bernie Sanders is now within 8 points of Hillary Clinton up in New Hampshire. So it's a great time to be a progressive. Let's celebrate. 866-55-PRESS is our toll-free number. Join the conversation. Join the fun. Good to have you with us.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Came here to Foster City, where we're going to watch UC Berkeley, a University of California SWAT team, do a hostage rescue scenario.
All personnel aware of the proper protection equipment. This includes all personnel identified as staff and role players, VIPs, and support staff. Please, eyes, throat, and drawing protection is mandatory and should be worn at all times by personnel directly involved in or near the scenario. Always check your mask prior to use to ensure there are no cracks and the mask is in safe working condition.
Should I put the water in there now?
Yeah, go ahead. This is like some kind of chemical agent?
Yeah. Copy, we're ready. I'm gonna get shot. I already know it, dude. Fiend's yelling at me.
Help me. Your hands. Help me. Your hands. Back away.
Gentlemen, we have a chemical. We need to pull our person out. Get these guys out of here. Pull them out. Put your hands on your face. Put your hands on your face. Keep him covered.
Your head up. He's got a shotgun back there.
That's all right. Keep his hands up where we can.
Hands on your face.
Hands on your face. On your face.
Someone cover me. I got a holster up, bro.
Okay, pull him around the corner. Pick him up. Get him out of the building. Quickly. We've got this. Let's get that guy out of there. You, come towards us. Keep your hands on your face. Turn around. Face away from us. Back towards us. Quickly. Back up towards me. Quickly. Pull him out of the room.
We're exfilling, Billy.
Yes, we are exfilling.
It was actually around 92, 94. There was an attack on the chancellor at his residence, which is on campus. And we realized at the time that we didn't have any resources to deal with that kind of threat when it took place. So, and I think about 15 years before, they had some kind of semblance of a SWAT team. So they regenerated the idea of I see. Activating a SWAT team.
And then since then, you guys have kind of branched out to doing what kind of stuff?
Well, since then, we train for everything. We train for every eventuality, barricaded subjects. Like I said, most of what we do is high-risk warrants.
And it's something like it could be like a mugging kind of thing, just like on the street.
Depends.
Or
I mean,
like
a mugging, but if it's armed, particularly.
Right, an armed mugging.
Right. Exactly. And then obviously we're looking for training for anything else. That we might be faced with. And that's what's great about Urban Shield is we couldn't duplicate this on our own.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
They got him. Yep. The second escaped murderer. Shot and captured yesterday, and as Governor Cuomo says, the nightmare is over. What do you say? Hello, everybody. Happy Monday, June 29. So good to see you today. Coming off what we trust is a good weekend for all of you. It certainly was for me. Had a little time up on the beach in Rhode Island, and even though the weather wasn't great, still got a good ocean swim in. First one of the season with a very warm and comfortable 64 degrees.
Oof.
Whoa. Didn't stay in long.
That's brisk.
But as far as this morning goes, come on in. The water's fine. Good to have you. Good to see you. And we welcome you to the Bill Press Show. On this Monday, we are here with you on your local progressive talk radio station, of course. Happy to be here with you as your morning, the start to your morning every day. For 3 hours, we'll tell you what's going on and give you a chance to tell us what it all means to you and what you think about it all. And there's lots to talk about today and lots to celebrate. Man, I got to tell you, you know how to do it. Give us a call at 866-55-PRESS and send us your comments on Twitter at BP Show or on Facebook at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. We've got to celebrate the taking down the Confederate flag. We have to celebrate Obamacare. Now, for sure, the law of the land here to stay, and people able to buy health care for their families in all 50 states, despite efforts of the Republican Party and conservatives to gut it. But they finally give up. And we celebrate, of course, the fact that the Supreme Court says, yes, in fact, the 14th Amendment, equal rights under the Constitution do apply to all Americans, including the right to love whom you want to love and to marry whom you want to marry. All of that today. What a great, great week we had last week. Good to see you today, and good to welcome our team here, Peter Rockburn and Elisa Murphy. Hello, hello.
Hello, Bill.
Hey, happy Monday.
With old Jamie Benson on the phones.
Here we are.
As always, ready to take your calls. Remember the number, 866-55-PRESS. And Cyprian Bolding here, too, on the video cam and the video cameras and the lights, keeping us looking good on Free Speech and TawkrTV. And I have to tell you, we have never, never, never seen anything like President Obama and that eulogy at the memorial service for Reverend Clementa Pinckney in Charleston, South Carolina. Incredible. He man, I'll tell you, the Reverend President Obama.
Yeah, I'm telling you.
Mm-hmm. He has that cadence.
Yeah.
He can do it. He knows the crowd. He knows the mood. He knows the history of the black church. He starts out talking about the Bible. He threads, and the crowd is. That's the thing about the black churches. The crowd is with them.
Yes,
and they're always.
Amen.
Yeah.
Yes. After every line,
they comment. They comment out loud. They do it every Sunday. They do it every service. But the president knows that, and to follow that, and then the organist coming in and providing a little musical accompaniment just to lift him up. That's what they lift the preacher.
Yeah, that's their job. By the way, if you haven't been to a black church, that's how it happens every Sunday.
Absolutely.
You leave with chills.
It's the greatest.
Yeah. Lift the job and the president. And he talked about the theme. The theme was that the killer didn't realize how much grace was in that church, and God's grace. And taking down the flag was a display of God's. We were proving God's grace, and that word kept coming through. And then he gets to the end. Unbelievable.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound.
Listen to him.
Oh, I know. And you see it.
That saved.
Everybody jumps in.
And they all stood up. Still gives me chills.
Seriously.
Can you imagine any other president of the United States daring to do it? I mean, they're just knowing it. Oh, wow. What a moment. Unbelievable. And then he picked up on that and he said, Clem Pinckney saw that grace.
Found that grace.
And
listed every single person that was killed in that attack. They found that grace.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God.
Unbelievable moment.
David Jackson reported that the president said grace 35 times.
Is that right?
During that whole eulogy.
Wow. Yeah. That was the theme. They didn't just stick that on at the end. He was working up to it the whole time.
He really was.
Beautiful. That's going to go down as one of the greatest presidential speeches ever.
And as many times as I've heard that song, for the first time, I realized what an amazing song that is, religious context aside.
Yeah.
Just an amazing moment and an amazing
and I forget his name now, but written by a former slave owner and slave trader, rather, right? Who then became an abolitionist and wrote that song. And by the way, Vice President Joe Biden on his own went down to Mother Emanuel Church yesterday to take part in the services, and then spoke. They asked him to speak, and he spoke briefly. So. What a day. And we've got lots to talk about today with a lot of good help from Scott Bland from the National Journal, and then Elizabeth Wydra from the Constitutional Accountability Center about all the big Supreme Court decisions last week. We'll get into those in just a second. But first...
This is the Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other quick stories making news. Congratulations to James Taylor.
Really?
He's been around for a long, long time. His first record came out in 1968.
I know.
And for the first time ever, he is at the top of the Billboard charts for the top album sales for his newest record, Before This World. His first album, as I mentioned, came out in 1968. Sweet Baby James is generally considered to be his biggest record. All kinds of hits on there. But that only made it to number 3. So congratulations to him. It's finally at the top of the heap.
I love James Taylor.
Oh, yeah, man.
Mm-hmm.
I have to say, I know this album is great. I can't wait to get it. But his album with Carole King.
Oh, yeah.
James Taylor.
The duets album. Sure.
God, it's so good.
Sure. We're going to talk about the Supreme Court and their big ruling on same-sex marriage. But one person or one group who's very excited is Ben & Jerry's. Ben & Jerry's ice cream. Now, they have a flavor that they sell, which is chocolate chip cookie dough. It's vanilla ice cream with chunks of chocolate chip cookie dough.
It's very good.
It's very good.
know, it is.
Well, it's no more. It's no longer going to be called chocolate chip cookie dough. It's called I dough with two little rings as the O's in dough to celebrate marriage equality.
That's very good.
They got right out in front of that. So Ben and Jerry's, man, they're out there.
It's hard to. I mean, Ben and Jerry, they are so on it.
They really are, man.
Yeah.
They really are. And if tomorrow feels a little bit longer than usual, you're not imagining it. Now, the average day, the length of every day, is based on how long it takes the Earth to rotate, which is approximately 86,400.002 seconds, okay? Mm-hmm. Turns out our rotation is a little bit slower. We're slowing down Earth's rotation.
Really?
Just barely.
Climate change.
So to make up for it, tomorrow, Tuesday, June 30th, we are adding one extra second.
Really?
A leap second will be added tomorrow. So we're going to be a little bit longer than usual tomorrow.
All right, okay.
What are you going to do with that extra second?
Remind me of that tomorrow.
Okay.
Tomorrow when we start the show.
Yeah,
we have to.
We've got an extra second to waste.
Well, not to waste, to fill.
We'll have all this extra time.
That's right.
That's it. Exactly. Take 2 or 3 more calls.
That's right.
And that extra
Get right
second.
to the point.
Yes, indeed. I have to tell you, look, I want to see a big smile on everybody's face right now, okay? No frowns, no bitching, no complaining this morning. This is a moment. Celebration. If I could sing like the president, I would sing that celebration song. Yeah, indeed. That's what it is. A moment that we have never seen a week like last week. I got to tell you, it was one victory after another. And if you were a sad-faced conservative, it was one slam after another. But they've been wrong. They've been wrong about these issues forever. And they finally got their comeuppance. And the world finally caught up with us, stuff that we've been saying all along. Number one, the Confederate flag represents, for too many people, it represents a lot of suffering, it's a symbol of a lot of suffering, a lot of pain, a lot of hardship, a lot of hatred. And the flag ought to be taken down and not flown with pride, because it is no longer, if ever was, it certainly is no longer a symbol of our heritage and something that all Americans should celebrate. And that the world finally caught up with us last week, led by Jeb Bush for one, Mitt Romney for another, and South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley leading the fight across the South and across the nation to take down all vestiges, all remaining symbols of or showings of the Confederate flag. A great moment to all to celebrate. And that was followed by that unbelievable decision on Thursday. I know you talked about it with Igor, and thanks to Igor, by the way, for filling in on Friday. Igor, the Supreme Court, 6-3. Chief Justice John Roberts, conservative Chief Justice John Roberts, writing the decision. And that decision could have been written by Bernie Sanders. John Roberts just saying health care should be there for all Americans, not just Americans in some states. Unbelievable that the Republican Party took that position. I mean, isn't there any grown-up in the Republican Party who should have said, don't file that lawsuit? That makes us look like, we just want to deprive 8 million Americans who already have health insurance for the first time in their lives for their families and take it away from them. That's what this amounted to, and the Supreme Court saw through it, 6-3, and upheld Obamacare. President Obama in the Rose Garden out there saying what a great victory this was.
For all the misinformation campaigns and doomsday predictions, for all the talk of death panels and job destruction, for all the repeal attempts, this law is helping tens of millions of Americans.
And the president said it's pretty clear what the message is now.
After multiple challenges to this law before the Supreme Court, we can now say this for certain. The Affordable Care Act still stands. It is working, and it is here to stay.
Here to stay. And, of course, John Boehner immediately went out, sobbing about what a loss this was. We're going to continue to try to repeal it. Oh, man, over 50 times. Give it up, Boehner. Give it up. Right. People accept it. People like it. It's working. It's helping millions of people, including millions of people in red states. That was number 2. And then number 3, the next day, oh, my God, 5-4, the Supreme Court saying that, yes, by the way, we do believe in the Constitution. What a novel concept. We do believe that everybody should enjoy equal rights under the Constitution, including the right to love whom you want to and marry whom you want to. And again, the great victory for progressives and the president for the second day in a row out in the Rose Garden to celebrate that.
Today should also give us hope that on the many issues with which we grapple, often painfully, real change is possible. Shifts in hearts and minds is possible.
The president said it takes a long time, but he said that sometime, that finally, and some days like that day, justice will come down as a thunderbolt. And what I thought was really interesting about this was, so here's the Supreme Court affirming marriage equality, affirming the Constitution of the United States, that it should apply to all citizens in all 50 states. And every one of the 16 Republican candidates for president came out in opposition to that decision. Every single one of them. Don't tell me there's no difference between the two parties. You know, I mean, you had the reaction to this was just incredible. Like Scalia in his dissent says, this is a threat to democracy.
Come on.
Carly Fiorina said, democracy is dead. Oh, my God. No, democracy is alive. I mean, you just got it just backwards. But, you know, you had an incredible thing. Like Ted Cruz says, this proves that we have to have the justices on the Supreme Court have to be up for re-election every couple of years. Yeah. You know what? Maybe that's a good idea. Let's put Clarence Thomas up for re-election. Yeah, get rid of him. Let's put Scalia up for re-election. They'd lose. I mean, first of all, it's an insane idea, and it's never going to happen. I mean, why do they say this nonsense? Scott Walker says, we have to have a constitutional amendment now, right? And amend the Constitution to ban same-sex marriage. No, come on, you're not going to roll back. I don't see why. Why did the Republicans see this as an opportunity to put that issue behind them, to put their homophobia behind them, and just move on and say, okay, now, gay, straight, doesn't matter. We welcome you into our party. Instead, they're going to continue the war on women. They're going to continue the war on blacks. They're going to continue the war on gays. They're going to continue just marginalizing themselves.
I think you hit the nail on the head. They're sore losers.
Yeah.
They're just sore losers. They can't accept the fact that they lost. Look, the Supreme Court has gone both ways, right? And you never, ever, ever hear people bring up ideas like getting rid. Bobby Jindal said we should just get rid of the Supreme Court.
Oh, yeah, Bobby did right. Get rid of the court.
Like, who put that out there when Republicans win in the Supreme Court? Or one of their ideas win? It's a crazy idea.
All right. Yeah. So it's a great week. Let's celebrate. Let's celebrate and let them weep and moan. 866-55-PRESS. It's a good day to be a liberal.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Silicon Valley's Santa Clara County is often portrayed as a role model for the rest of the country. The county has some of the highest salaries and most expensive real estate in America, thanks in large part to the phenomenal success of tech companies such as Google, Yahoo, Intel, Adobe, and of course Apple, the nation's wealthiest and most profitable company. But Santa Clara County also has a more unseemly distinction. I'm standing near downtown San Jose, inside what is by some accounts the largest homeless encampment in America. The jungle, as it's known, occupies a 65-acre stretch of creek where about 300 people live in makeshift structures. It's less of a homeless encampment than a full-blown shantytown.
This being the largest homeless encampment in the United States, and with us having Silicon Valley with Steve Jobs and all this cash, we're not supposed to have this kind of homeless problem. You know what I mean?
I done been shot with a pellet gun like 4 times, attacked with baseball bats, my house set on fire.
This is like hell on earth. I mean, this is like something you will not see, and you have to see to believe, actually. It's like fourth world conditions.
Hi. Have you ever heard of a place called the Jungle?
Sorry?
A place called the Jungle. Have you heard of it?
We're not making enough money really for conventional homes or housing, and we make too much money for subsidized homes. So we're kind of, floating between the oil and the water. We told the landlady here if it would be possible to continue staying here. She said, no, you got to go. I already rented it out. We went and loaded things into a storage facility, and it's still there. And all the campgrounds and things that we saw were too far out of the city, like KOAs and that sort of thing. So what we decided to do was to move into the jungle. So that's what we did.
A few days ago, a woman named Lydia Hernandez was robbed inside of her tent. When she refused to hand over the money, the robbers slit her throat. When she still fought back, they bashed her head with an axe. She died a few hours later. Residents say that the police never come into the jungle, so they have to fend for themselves.
There's no law down there except our own, right? There's no law, so we can smoke dope all day in the open. The dope dealers ain't scared because they're secure.
We go to the Fairmont Hotel and have a brunch or do a philanthropy. That's not going to cut it. We need billions of dollars to go into the inner cities and go into the jungle. Silicon Valley, the Bay Area is known for its innovation, its progressive thinking. It's one of the most progressive pockets in the United States, if not the world, and certainly one of the wealthiest. If we can't do it here, it won't happen anywhere. It's got to happen here.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
This is the Bill Press Show.
3 big wins last week, 27 minutes after the hour now. What does it all mean? My favorite comment from one of the Republican candidates was Donald Trump, who says, no, he still believes in traditional marriage, to which the follow-up question, of course, is, how many of your 3 marriages, Donald, have been traditional?
Ouch.
Yeah. Let's say hello to Doug out in Sacramento, California. Hey, Doug, how are you?
Pretty good, Bill. Glad to talk to you. I just wanted to say we have these great victories now. What are we going to do with them? Historically, our party tends to blow the message.
Yes.
And are we going to get the message out to people so that they can know what a great victory it was and why they should vote, Democrat in a year and a half?
I would hope so, Doug. But listen, having been former chair of the California Democratic Party based in Sacramento, California, I know what you're saying. It's absolutely true. We tend to screw things up when we have things going for us. But I hope this time it's going to be different. And I think they will, because I think the American people really, really recognize the benefits of Obamacare and why it's fair, why it makes sense. I think they recognize why marriage equality is just fits the Constitution, and all Americans should have that opportunity. More calls coming up, 866-55-PRESS.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Officer, were you the one who arrested me? Gonna shake my hand? So I got invited to host a vigil called Carry the Names. And that's what they were doing, carrying the names of the people who were victims of deadly police force. Michael Brown, Eric Garner, that guy Gurley. I got a motion from Dragonfly from Stop Shopping Choir, and I started preaching. I preached up a storm as best I could, but about a minute and a half into my sermon, the place was flooded with police, Homeland Security, National Guard, state troopers, and I was pushed over and handcuffed so fast, down in the jail, down in the basement. Before you know it, I was out the door, put in prison overnight. The next morning, I'm in court. The same thing happens. I'm just rushed out of there. Then our lawyer, Wiley Steckler, gives me this iPhone. And there, in black and white, in the Gothamist, a popular paper, is this charge by Adam Lisberg, the MTA law enforcement spokesperson for this grand place. His quote is that I, Reverend Billy, physically attacked a police officer. Unbelievable. The feeling of being robbed of my work and life and identity, just the fiction. I did not touch anybody. I did not look. I know how to do this. I'm trained in nonviolence. I did not do anything. It was right here. It was right here. It happened right here. I was simply arrested while I was speaking and taken away, and that's it. The cold feeling in my city, the city that I love, that city spokespersons whose salary I pay for with my taxes, that they would say this. I could just feel the rending apart of the community, that we are not that close. We're not. They are willing to say this, and they think that they can just say anything about anybody and get away with it. So we have something in the Church of Stop Shopping called radical forgiveness. Amen?
Cops and bankers love their children.
I forgive the police.
We gotta love them too. Cops and bankers love their mothers.
But I'll stay radical.
Mothers love their brothers. We gotta love them too.
But we'll wake up every morning forgiving each other, reaching out, touching, telling stories, having humor, being in a community together, sharing our children, sharing the streets, sharing the climate, being in the city together. But forgiving each other, being grateful to each other, helping each other out, living together, living together.
I got a daughter just turned 4. What do we do in the superstore? What do we do with the blood and the gore? The water's rising through our door. Love our children too. Love our children too.
Amen. Earthalluia.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds. At highway speeds, that's enough time to travel the length of a football field. Stop the texts, stop the wrecks.
Connect with The Bill Press Show on Twitter. Follow us at BP Show and tweet using the hashtag WatchingBP. This is The Bill Press Show.
You got it 33 minutes after the hour on Monday, June 29. A day of celebration here on the Bill Press Show. Good to have you with us as we come to you live all across this great land of ours on your local progressive talk radio station and on Free Speech TV. We are here in our nation's capital, our studio on Capitol Hill, just down the street from the United States Capitol building, where we're brought to you today by the National Education Association. The good men and women, teachers of America, under President Lily Eskelsen Garcia, creating great public schools for every student in this country. You bet, doing the Lord's work. We salute them, thank them for their support, and encourage you to check out their website, NEA.org. Talking about the a string of victories, a good week for President Obama and a good week for the nation, all those who believe in equality and the Constitution, and seeing the Confederate flag come down, Obamacare reaffirmed as the law of the land, the second time that this conservative Republican court has stood up and told the Republican Party, you are wrong in trying to gut Obamacare because it's legal, it's been enacted by the Congress, and as Chief Justice John Roberts said in his decision Thursday, it's the right thing to do. I mean, he basically said, Obama's right, John Boehner, Obama's right, and you're wrong on this issue. And, of course, then the court, by a 5-4 decision, a little more narrowly, thanks to Justice Anthony Kennedy, affirming what should have been done a long time ago, that the right to marry whom you love, it should be the same in all 50 states. A great victory. And, by the way, the president, he's on a roll. Now we move into the next thing, which is the Iran nuclear talks. Yeah. The deadline is tomorrow. Word is today that they're not quite there yet. They may miss a deadline. So, you know what? Extend the deadline. Big deal. Yeah, BFD. Just give them another week.
You know, when we look at the history of the presidency of Barack Obama, right, when we look back in 20 years, last week is going to be amazing. The Supreme Court on those two major issues, like, you know, Igor Volsky, who was hosting on Friday, made the point that this Obamacare decision is essentially the death knell for any more opposition to Obamacare.
I don't care what they say.
Right. At this point, like, even any weird outlier suit, right, is not going to be taken up.
No.
And it's so baked in at this point that there's no going back. So that's it. Obamacare is here, and it only gets more effective from here on out.
But what I don't understand, and I am the last person that the Republican Party would ever turn to say, what should we do?
Right.
I have a lot of good advice for them, by the way.
Yeah.
And
that's nice of you.
They'd be a better party if they took my advice.
Yeah.
But they won't. But my advice to them right now would be, this is an opportunity for you, right, to stop BSing the public by saying we're going to repeal Obamacare, right, and by stop waging war on the LGBT Americans, many of whom, by the way, are Republicans.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But you know what? They are too damn dumb to get it. All 16 of them, every 16 of the ones who are out there, or planning to come out here so far, opposed the Supreme Court's decision on Obamacare and said, we're still going to fight it. It's wrong. We're still going to fight. We're going to repeal it, blah, 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 blah. And all 16 of them opposed the decision on same-sex marriage and said they will not abide by it.
Yeah.
Or came up with some, as we talked earlier, some crazy idea about how to get around it, by putting members of the court up for election, or just getting rid of the Supreme Court, or having a constitutional amendment. This is really an opportunity for them. But, so they're going to go out in the primary, and every speech they're going to say, I'm going to repeal. Elect me, and I'll repeal Obamacare.
That's going to happen.
Elect me, and I will stand for a traditional marriage has to be only between one man and one woman. They're going to say that in the primary. One of them will get elected, and then, you know what? In the general, the Republican Party is going to lose. They'll never win the White House with that position. Never, never, never.
At some point in politics, you just have to admit you lost.
Move on.
Find a bigger and more important issue to fight on.
There are a lot of other issues they could
many more.
Yeah, right. But this is it. So,
but there you go again, giving them advice.
I know, giving them advice. And by the way, I still have to add that little icing on the cake for progressives is that the latest poll for New Hampshire, Hillary Clinton 43, Bernie Sanders 35.
Here he comes.
Within 10 points.
Here he comes.
Less than 10 points. 8 points of Hillary Clinton. But what a great week last week. Anita is in San Antonio, Texas. Hi, Anita.
Good morning, Bill. Good morning, Peter.
Yeah. Hey now.
Yeah. President Obama's new theme song should be "All I Ever Do Is Win, Win, Win."
I think it should be Amazing Grace.
He came out to that song at a correspondence dinner one year. He came out to All I Do Is Win. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Oh, that's right.
That's right,
We also won the housing discrimination decision.
That's right, the FHA stuff.
So that's another win, yeah. It was a great week.
I know. And by the way, I think I mentioned last week, I'm going to be at the court today for when they announce the rest, what's left over. I don't know what's left over. It says something on lethal injection.
Yeah, that's a good one. You still got that one.
You have that one, I know. But I'm really a little pissed that they decided to announce these on Thursday and Friday.
Yeah, they get all the big dogs out
when
of
I
the way.
did not have a ticket, and I have a ticket today, bro. Maybe I could stand up and say, "Hey, can you replay that?"
Tell me how that happened.
That Obamacare decision. I wasn't here for. I'd like to see how that came down. How about Jeff out in Chicago on WCPT in Chicago? Hi, Jeff.
Hi, Bill. You know, I was sitting around and I was up north and I heard the decision. You know, we were driving in the car about upholding that decision. But isn't it the perfect timing? Because once they sign the TPP and we go to even more minimum wage jobs with our jobs leaving the country, isn't this kind of like what we're going to need for this country when nobody has good paying jobs with insurance?
We'll need the Obamacare. Yeah,
well, then we're really going to need it.
You know, Jeff, I would hope we could have Obamacare and no TPP, right? And keep those jobs at home. I mean, I guess you got to say Obama can't be right about everything.
I know, and it's better than the alternative, I guess.
Boy, I'm sorry, I'd forgotten all about TPP. Man, I was celebrating. I forgot about that. Talk about moving on.
Yeah.
No, that one didn't go so well. That one I certainly would not put in the victory column. Obama would, but I wouldn't.
Yeah, still a win for Obama, but yeah.
But I think for progressives, you got to admit that the rest was pretty good. And, you know, I don't want to rejoice in their misfortune, but what makes, I think, these victories all the sweeter is that it makes them, the other side, look so pathetic. Yeah. And the way they responded, so pathetic. The only one with, like, a little glimmer of sanity was Lindsey Graham, who said he didn't agree with the court's decision, and he still thinks that people in all 50 states who don't agree with it should be able to should be allowed not to honor it. For example, back to the florist or the pizza dealer and all that stuff. You know, still with that crazy idea that gay couples are going to have a pizza parlor, cater their wedding.
That might,
right. I mean,
never happen.
But Lindsey Graham did say that he thought that a constitutional amendment for the Republican Party to sponsor a constitutional amendment would be a mistake for the Republican Party. At least he's willing to admit that. Most of the others aren't. But still, to watch them and then to hear the rhetoric from Scalia. If you read his dissent in both cases, I think shows that Scalia has just totally lost it.
Yeah.
Totally lost it.
Yeah, it's the weirdest, most rambling, nonsensical dissent.
Basically, the court agreed with Scalia on the Obamacare decision, saying that you can't just take those 6 words and say the state has to mean that if you have a federal exchange, you're out of luck. And that's what Scalia has always said. You have to take the whole context of the law. And Scalia, in his dissent, said, I'm paraphrasing here, I agree that you have to consider the whole context of the law, except in this case. Didn't make any sense. And again, to say on the same-sex marriage, this means democracy. It's a threat to our democracy. Why is following the Constitution to the letter of the law a threat to... I thought that's what Scalia believed in. Beverly is out in St. David, Illinois. What do you say, Beverly?
Hey, good morning. It's good for progressives, but did I hear you say you had a ticket to the Supreme Court?
Yeah, today. Right.
Well, you're going to have fun today because there's 3 cases that could go in our direction.
3 more?
Yeah, EPA rules.
Oh, right, and that's right, and lethal injection, right?
Right, and then the other one is a redistricting case that conservatives brought that they wanted to just count people that were legal registered voters, and the rest of the people in the district they didn't care about.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, you know what, Beverly? I'm going to be there as a cheerleader today, so if they go our way, I'll stand up and cheer.
Well, I'll be watching.
And if they don't, I'll probably get thrown out. All right. Thanks, Beverly. Good to hear from you all. Scott Bland, editor-in-chief of the National Journal. Coming up next here on The Bill Press Show.
This is The Bill Press Show.
When I started learning about nutrition, about which, by the way, much less is known than you might think, I learned that what mattered most about one's health was not necessarily the nutrients, good or bad, that you were consuming or staying away from, or even the calorie counts. But what predicted a healthy diet more than anything else is the fact that it was being cooked by a human being and not a corporation. Corporations cook very differently than people do. They use vast amounts of salt, fat, and sugar, much more than you would ever use in your own cooking. And the reason they do that is those are three incredibly attractive and incredibly cheap ingredients. And when they're layered properly, as in a chip or pastries and forms of junk food, they're incredibly addictive. They really press our buttons. They activate our dopamine network, our cravings. And in fact, people in the industry, they don't talk about addiction in the food industry, even though they traffic in addiction. They talk about craveability. It's the same thing. And snackability is another term they use. It's a lovely word. And then the last point about corporate cooking that's important to understand is they cook different stuff than you do at home. What they're good at, in general, they don't cook that well, but things like chips, they cook incredibly well. And here's a classic food that if you make it yourself, if you've ever made French fries, you have to wash the potatoes, you have to peel the potatoes, you have to slice the potatoes, you have to fry them in a lot of oil, you have to spatter your entire stovetop, you have to clean up, and then you have this pot of oil you have to get rid of. I mean, it's really difficult, and it's a pain. They're wonderful, but it's a pain. And if you make them yourself, 6 weeks, 2 months, because it's too much work. But when you let corporations cook for you, it's so simple and so inexpensive, and they're really good, that you will have them twice a day, as many people in America do. So you see the kinds of foods you end up with are these labor-intensive foods and desserts. These special occasion foods become everyday foods when we let industry cook for us. Eat anything you want, just cook it yourself.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Seen on Free Speech TV and online on TawkrTV. This is The Bill Press Show.
12 minutes now before the top of the hour, Monday, June 29. We are at 13 Republican candidates now running for president. And tomorrow, number 14, Scott Bland keeps track of all of this as the editor-in-chief of the National Journal Hotline, nationaljournal.com, joining us on our newsline this morning. Hello again, Scott.
Good morning.
Yeah, so Chris Christie, number 14, and now John Kasich coming along too, huh?
That's right. Every time we think there are too many to count, someone comes along and adds a couple more, and Scott Walker, too, is going to be jumping in sometime in the next few weeks.
It looks like, let me see, 14, 15. We'll have a total of 16 then, I guess. I mean,
Sweet 16.
That we know of. Right. Is there any constitutional limit to how many Republicans can run for president in the same year? I'll have to go back.
As long as they're all 35.
We'll have to ask Justice Scalia, right, what the founding fathers meant, right, by that. But
and especially, it's a good thing none of them are from California, because apparently they're not real Westerners. Who knows if they're even real Americans after that dissent that he wrote the other day.
Whoa, as a Californian, you're making me nervous here.
There was a little aside in one of them about how unrepresentative the Supreme Court is of the general population. He said, and we only have one California, or we have no Westerners because California doesn't even really count. It was. I suggest you go seek it out. It was an amusing little moment.
Well, speaking of the Supreme Court, I have a ticket today to be in the court when the announcements are made on the last 3 cases that they haven't, well, at least haven't announced their decision. Right. One of them, one of them could have a real impact on the presidential election. The redistricting.
I think several of them could have a real impact on the presidential election and the next election. From a political perspective, the redistricting decision is the most important, potentially. What the Supreme Court is going to be deciding today is whether or not states where voters have established independent redistricting commissions and taken the redistricting power away from legislatures.
Like California.
The Supreme Court, like California and like Arizona, the court is going to decide whether or not that is constitutional. And basically, I went to the oral arguments back in March, and basically it was a 2-hour argument over what the word legislature means, and basically just decided, the Constitution says that state legislatures shall determine the time, manner, and place of conducting elections.
Yeah.
And so the question is whether or not states which delegate some legislative power to the people, through ballot measures, are allowed to cut politicians out of the redistricting process and trying to prevent gerrymandering by empowering these independent commissions. And that's what Arizona did back in 2000 for the first time, and California did it this past decade. And if the court rules against the commissions, we're going to potentially get lines redrawn in somewhere from a sixth to a third of the congressional districts around the country.
Wow. Yeah. No, that would be huge. Right. But if the legislature, I guess the question is whether the legislature has to do it themselves or the legislature, in effect, could contract out, to an independent commission, right?
Right. And that's one of the things that's different in Arizona and California compared to other states. In those, the legislature is completely cut out of the process, basically. There are other states that have commissions that work with the legislatures. And so depending on the type of decision the court issues, it could affect a different number of states.
Well, certainly also, at least 2 other cases, right, the Affordable Care Act decision and the marriage equality decision will play a big role in 2016 as well. In the Republican primary, at least. And in the general election, I guess, too.
Oh, sure. Absolutely. And I think, it's going to be interesting. The other 2 cases coming up today, with the decisions coming up today, you've got one rendering a judgment on whether or not the EPA was allowed to do some pollution control measures that it did. Mm-hmm. And then another one on whether a certain often used cocktail of lethal injection drugs constitutes cruel and unusual punishment. A lot of political hot buttons coming up at the end of this term.
Yeah, I can see that so far, at least, I think every one of the, we were talking earlier, every one of the 16 Republican presidential candidates has said the court was wrong in its marriage equality decision. So
I believe that's right. And not only that, you've got one candidate in particular who happens to be the current governor of a state without that does not currently have gay marriage, Bobby Jindal. His administration is actually taking steps to delay the implementation of the ruling. And it's not clear whether that's going to be a matter of days or weeks, but basically they're saying they're going to wait for a lower court judgment in their region before starting to issue marriage licenses and provide benefits to gay couples.
All right, we'll see how they play out, and I can't wait to get to the court and see how they rule today. You were there for the arguments. I'll be there for the announcement. All right, Scott. Thanks so much for joining us. All right,
thanks
Scott
for having
me. National Journal Hotline, nationaljournal.com.
This is the Bill Press Show.
What gets you into college? Good SAT scores? High GPA? Lots of extracurriculars?
Sure, but what you really need is money.
If you don't have the cash, you'll need a loan.
And we mean huge student loans because the cost of college has risen 1,000% in the last 30 years.
This means big money for the banks that collect fees and interest.
Now, millions of young people are starting their adult lives with an average of $29,000 of loans on their backs.
Altogether, we're talking $1.2 trillion in student debt.
And more people are finding it impossible to pay them back. Welcome to the student debt crisis.
The increasing demand for higher education and cuts to state funding gave colleges a huge incentive to keep inflating prices.
I graduated about a year ago, currently in $35,000 of debt.
I am in debt about like $25,000.
I owe $23,000.
I owe over $50,000 in student loans.
38.8 million Americans owe money on a student loan.
And the biggest names in banking are making huge profits off the booming student loan industry. Sallie Mae, the largest provider of private student loans, made $949 million last year.
They only give you about 6 months to look for a job. You have to start paying back the loan. It's very pressuring, especially nowadays. It's very hard to find a job.
Over half of the students graduating in 2012 could not find a decent paying job.
They either had low-wage jobs or unpaid internships or were unemployed altogether.
So you can't make the payments. You start incurring late fees, which makes the loan even harder to pay off.
And it stays with you for years, even decades.
Right now, a third of the people who started repaying their loans are delinquent or in default.
That's 13.7 million people, more than the populations of Chicago, New York, and San Francisco combined.
Worse, it's not just the borrowers who are in trouble. Many loans require co-signers.
So if the student is unable to pay, that co-signer, a father, a mother, or a grandparent, is now on the hook.
Even a grandparent's Social Security benefits can be garnished to pay the loan.
We should have an answer to this. If you get really behind in your car payment or your credit cards, you can file for bankruptcy.
But Congress has made it nearly impossible to discharge student loans through bankruptcy.
Big institutions make big profits while students try to make ends meet under crushing debt.
Is this how we want our education system to work?
The whole point of going to college is to get the career you want, but lately that's been discouraged because no one can afford school. You get a job just to pay off your student loans.
We need higher education, not higher debt.
Sign up to end the student debt crisis at higherednotdebt.org.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Elizabeth Wydra from the Constitutional Accountability Center coming up at the top of the next hour on the Supreme Court decisions last week. Peter?
So comedian Margaret Cho is a big-time Hillary Clinton supporter. She's been out in front and leading the support for Hillary Clinton, but she sat down with Larry King on his show, which, by the way, Larry King has a show.
Yeah.
But she said, quote, "I'm in Hillary's corner, although I have to admit, I have a little crush on Bernie Sanders. I think he's kind of great," end quote. So she's trying to have it both ways there.
Bernie Sanders, you mean the train conductor with the cotton hair?
That's the one.
I feel the burn.
Thank you for your endorsement.
Right. Yeah, Bernie Sanders had another big weekend up in New Hampshire.
Yes, sir.
Big, huge crowds turning out for Bernie. And again, he's within 8 points of Hillary Clinton and closing in. And I think the Hillary people are starting to get a little nervous. He could win Iowa and New Hampshire.
This is the Bill Press Show.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Bill Press Show.
Elizabeth Wydra from the Constitutional Accountability Center coming up at the top of the next hour on the Supreme Court decisions last week. Peter?
So comedian Margaret Cho is a big-time Hillary Clinton supporter. She's been out in front and leading the support for Hillary Clinton, but she sat down with Larry King on his show, which, by the way, Larry King has a show.
Hello, what do you say, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, friends and neighbors? It is Monday, June 29. Good to see you today, and welcome to the Bill Press Show. I hope you had a great weekend, ready to dive into the news of the week, and I got to tell you what a week it has been. We're here with you, by the way, of course, on Free Speech TV and worldwide on our video stream, youtube.com/TawkrTV. Yep, we progressives will never see another week like we had last week. 3 huge victories. First, we saw the Confederate flag fall in the South. It won't be back. It'll be in museums where it belongs, alongside of statues of many of the leaders of the Confederacy. And a big victory again for conservatives and a big loss for conservatives. For progressives and a big loss for conservatives. The other victory, of course, on Thursday, the judges on the Supreme Court, 6-3, standing up to affirm Obamacare, that subsidies should be extended to those who otherwise could not afford health insurance for their families. Those subsidies should be extended to people in all 50 states. Again, a huge loss for conservatives. A big victory for President Obama and for progressives nationwide. And then Friday, 5-4, the Supreme Court saying, yes, equal rights under the Constitution, including the right to love the one you love and to marry the one you love, should be nationwide in all 50 states. God bless America. What another great victory. And by the way, icing on the cake, Bernie Sanders is now within 8 points of Hillary Clinton up in New Hampshire. So it's a great time to be a progressive. Let's celebrate. 866-55-PRESS is our toll-free number. Join the conversation. Join the fun. Good to have you with us.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Piston fan. Their slogan was, we come to work. That's what Detroit about. That's why they used it. It's a team thing. They won 2 championships, a team. There was no star. No mayor can come in here and be a star. It's a team thing. No governors can come in here and think you can do it by yourself. It's a team thing. You got communities. They got ideas too. The only thing wrong with Detroit, people had lost hope here. Residents, city workers, so much corruption. They lose hope. But I grew up here. I love this city. I think it can come back. I've been working for the city 24 and a half years. Within the last 10 years, we took 4 pay cuts. And then an additional 10% wage cut. I've lost a home.
When you take all of the decisions out of the city of Detroit, all of us, then what do you have? Exactly what we got. A lot of problems. Every time the city seems to fall into a problem, it's always on the backs of us workers.
You wake up out of a dead sleep and you jump behind the wheel and take off driving and try to get everybody there safe, not knowing really what you're pulling up to. I'm not eligible for Social Security, so the pension is my sole salary at this point.
We've been in business here 39 years. We've seen a lot of changes in Detroit. The area was a lot of industry, a lot of city workers. It's getting very tough for the city workers. It's getting tough for us as a business people.
Response times are increasing because of the closing of companies, which takes your insurance rate through the roof. So all the things that affect us affect the citizens.
I worked for the city in different capacities for 29 years. I feel like an old jacket. They use me up and they throw me away. In my condition, nobody's gonna hire me. I'm 68 years old. Half the times, I can't get my blood pressure medicine. It's either feeding myself, blood pressure, or paying bills.
$754. By the time they take all the deductions for I have my car insurance, my house insurance, and my health insurance taken out. So the time they take all that, I'll get about $300 after they take all that out. I don't understand it. I can't see how the governor is allowing this to happen and what they're doing to and they want to blame it all on the seniors. Not only the seniors, but the city workers. And we worked hard. I know I worked hard.
I've been in Detroit since 1946. I was 14 years old when I came in. I don't live large at all. I wish I could. I don't know when the last time I've been shopping. I only get $1,100, and I'm 81 years old, and I need every penny that I can get and that I do get. And I'm very, very upset about the idea of them taking away my pensions that I worked 30 years for. I think it's terrible that they talk about Detroit like they do, because Detroit has been very good to me.
I have a lot of city workers coming in with their uniforms on, Detroit Water Department, Police Department, Fire Department. I get a lot of people, the Border Patrol come in. So if I lose that customer base, I'm going to be in a position where I might have to close down. If they take away their pensions, if they start cutting jobs, it's going to cut into a large percentage of not only our business, but other businesses that are in the city of Detroit. We're here. We've been here for 26 years. We're still trying to do business in the city.
Detroiters are survivors. They tough. They adapt. But only can do so much when your politicians are ahead of you and we're not on the same team. We're not going to let Detroit be erased, bulldozed to where we're going to fight to the bitter end. Detroit going to survive.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds. At highway speeds, that's enough time to travel the length of a football field. Stop the texts, stop the wrecks.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
They got him. Yes, escape convict number 2, shot and captured yesterday. He is back behind bars, or soon will be. The nightmare is over, as Governor Cuomo said yesterday. Hello, everybody. But here on the Bill Press Show, the celebration is just beginning, or continuing for sure. Celebration over a great week last week with big victory on the Confederate flag, a big victory on Obamacare, and another big victory on marriage equality. Hello, hello, hello. Happy Monday. Good to see you. Monday, June 29. How about it? Here we go. We've never had a week like that one, I got to tell you. We are on a roll. Don't win them all, but it's nice to win 3 in a row. And it's so good to see you today. Thank you for joining us as we come to you live from Washington, D.C., our nation's capital, and our studio right in the heart of the action, right in the middle of it. Just in the shadow of the Capitol Dome is where you find us on Capitol Hill, and we find you in your home, in your office, in your car, wherever. Good to be with you today. You can join the fun, join the conversation, express your point of view by giving us a call at 866-55-PRESS. Send us your comments on Twitter, if that's more convenient for you, at BP Show, and on Facebook at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. There he is, Peter Ogburn, and there she is, Elisa Murphy. Hello, guys.
Here we are.
Hey, good morning.
Ready to go into a whole new week with Jamie Benson, ready to take your calls at 866-55-PRESS, and Cyprian Bolden keeping us out there on the video side on Free Speech TV and worldwide on TawkrTV. Bernie Sanders up in New Hampshire yesterday. He was also on a couple of the Sunday shows on this week on ABC, riding on the news that the latest poll in New Hampshire shows him within striking distance of Hillary Clinton. Remember, he started out like 50 points behind. The last poll we saw was she was 51, he was 41. Now, that's changed to she is in the latest poll, Hillary at 43 and Bernie at 35. And Bernie Sanders says about the Affordable Care Act ruling on the Supreme Court. He told George Stephanopoulos on yesterday, yeah, of course, the ACA should stay, but we got to move beyond that.
We are the only major country on earth that doesn't guarantee health care to all people as a right. And yet we end up spending much more than they do. So I do believe that we have to move toward a Medicare for all, single-payer system.
Single payer. That's where he started. That's where he still is. That's the one option that President Obama took off the table before the debate even began, which was a big mistake. And Bernie Sanders is not going to give up on that idea. And he's right.
I love that Bernie finds very little joy in this landmark decision. This is not enough for him.
Not enough. No.
It's not enough. We got to go farther.
Yeah. And Bernie says, expressing a confidence I haven't heard in him before, we're going to win.
We are going to win New Hampshire. We're going to win Iowa. And I think we're going to win the Democratic nomination. And I think we're going to win the presidency.
Did he say Iowa?
Yeah.
That's how you're supposed to say it.
When Iowa.
That's how you say it.
Come on.
Bernie. We're going to win New Hampshire.
Yeah.
We're going to win Iowa. I love Bernie, man.
I do too, man. Feel the burn. Feel the burn.
Feel the burn,
All
Bill.
right, you got it.
Feel the burn, Bill.
All right, at 10 minutes after the hour, we will. So Elizabeth Wydra from the Constitutional Accountability Center will be joining us to talk about the Supreme Court decisions last week. And then we'll take a particular look at what's happening down in Charleston as well with Debbie Hines, legal analyst and trial lawyer and good friend of the program. But first,
this is the Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other stories making news. We got them, Bill. We got them. We got the two prisoners that had escaped from Clinton Correctional Facility in New York. It was quite the weekend. It started on Friday afternoon as news came out.
1,300 cops to catch two guys.
Yeah, they got them. They got them. They're one of
21 days.
Yeah, I know.
Police found and shot and killed the first inmate, David Matt. That happened on Friday towards the end of the day. What a news day we had on Friday. And then yesterday, reports started coming out yesterday afternoon that David Sweat, the other man who was running, he had been shot but captured alive. He's going to be fine, by the way. They're going to find out exactly what happened. So Governor Cuomo came out and took a victory lap yesterday, saying that the nightmare is over. They got him.
I'd love to know how the event. First of all, remember that one that was like 350 miles away, and they said that was a credible sighting, and they all moved down there to the Pennsylvania border. It turns out they were at the Canadian border.
Yeah.
But I'd love to know about how they managed to evade capture all that time.
Someone's going to write a piece on this, and I cannot wait to read how
where they got their food, where they hid out.
3 weeks. 3 weeks.
They reported yesterday in the cabin when they found David Sweat, he had pepper shakers, and they said he was using the pepper to get the dogs off the scent. So if you're a running fugitive, don't forget your pepper shakers.
They found this guy where they shot and captured him yesterday, under 2 miles
from the Canadian
border.
Yeah.
So close.
You almost made it, man. You almost made it. Harry Potter lives. We know that J.K. Rowling has said she's done writing books about Harry Potter, but last week she made a big announcement. She said, she sent out a tweet, said, I'm also very excited to confirm today that a new play called Harry Potter and the Cursed Child will be opening in London next year. So she's written a play about Harry Potter. No more books.
There's already been a Harry Potter play, hasn't there?
No. This is the first play.
Okay.
There have been movies.
No, I know what I'm thinking. The guy who played Harry Potter also played Daniel.
Oh, yeah.
Radcliffe played on Broadway.
That's it. Yeah.
And Aquis, I think.
Yeah. So Harry Potter's been on Broadway, just not in the way that you're used to seeing him.
Got it.
And we're a little less free today, Bill. We're a little less free. This is going to really bug you. I know this is going to really bother you. You've seen selfie sticks. When people take their cameras and put on the end of these long sticks, they can take selfies with it.
First time I saw them was in Rome.
Yeah.
Actually.
Well, they have been banned at Disneyland and Walt Disney World. You're no longer able to bring selfie sticks because they said it's a safety policy because so many people were being stupid and putting their selfie sticks out on the roller coasters. and
my
trying to
gosh.
take photos of themselves while they're on the roller coaster. And they said, no more of this. We're not going to have it. And it's also a crowd control issue for them because people will just stop and take these photos everywhere. So they're saying, no more selfie sticks.
I think they were. I remember they were banned somewhere else, maybe like in museums or something.
I think a
people
museum
were doing like
banned
they
them.
were afraid people would do damage and they put the selfie, whatever.
Yeah.
But okay, good.
There
I
you
don't
go.
mind that.
I'm good with this.
I think they're dumb.
I'm good with this.
Yeah. All right, I have to tell you, we have, President Obama, he is a great orator, a great speaker, great communicator, puts Ronald Reagan to shame in terms of the great communicator category. But, and we have seen him, I mean, okay, we got to know him, right, at the convention in 2004 in Boston. A fabulous speech. People still quote that speech, and always will. You know, we remember during his campaign, the speech that he gave on racism, responding to the comments of Reverend Jeremiah Wright at the Constitutional Center in Philadelphia. Incredible speech, one of the greatest speeches of all time, certainly of any presidential candidate. And as president, he's made some great speeches. I mean, his talk in his inaugural addresses were like okay, State of the Union's okay. But where I think really where we saw his glory was in the speech in Tucson after Gabby Giffords was shot, and also the speech in Newtown after the shooting of those 21st graders and the 6 adults up there at Sandy Hook Elementary School. But boy, as great as he is, we'd never seen him like he was on Friday at the memorial service to the Reverend Clementa Pinckney down in Charleston, South Carolina. That eulogy was incredible. I mean, it was really inspired in every sense of the word. And what I loved about the fact is the president, you know, he wove the themes together. There was so much about Reverend Pinckney himself. He described him. Here he is. You know, he said, a man of faith, of course, most of all.
We are here today to remember a man of God who lived by faith. A man who believed in things not seen. A man who believed there were better days ahead.
By the way, and he said what he remembered about him was, first of all, what a kind and gentle man he was.
The first thing I noticed was his graciousness, his smile, his reassuring baritone, his deceptive sense of humor. All qualities that helped him wear so effortlessly a heavy burden of expectation.
The cadence, right?
Yeah.
He says, yeah. He could have run that whole sentence together. Instead, it's little phrases with amens coming from the other preachers who were on the platform. And I mean, he summed it up and he said, he was a good man. And then he said, you know, that's all any of us should ever want in life. Is
that
at
was
the
such
end,
a moving
They
thing.
would say, he was a good man.
Yeah.
He was a good man. Think about this. I didn't realize. He was in the pulpit at the age of 13, Reverend Pinckney. He was a pastor at the age of 18. He was elected at the age of 23. And the president, see, he also, and he talked about him, and he also talked about the other 8 who were killed, the 8 who were killed along with Reverend Pinckney, the churchgoers, members of that Bible class. But he also talked about the role of the black church, which I thought was very, very powerful. When he, you know, that he said, how could he be a preacher and a public servant at the same time? Well, he said, the people who ask that question don't know the black church. He said, we have never separated our faith from our responsibility to the community. Yeah. They're kind of one and the same. There's no distinction, he said, between the pastor and the public servant. The sweet hour of prayer lasts all week long. Yeah. You know, he was really talking about what the social gospel, meaning of a responsibility, not just to get ready for heaven, but to take care of things right here on earth. And that Reverend Pinckney really embodied that, as does the president himself. And then he moved on to, you know, kind of other challenges that it all ties together, like getting rid of the Confederate flag. Why?
Removing the flag from this state's capital would not be an act of political correctness. It would not be an insult to the valor of Confederate soldiers. It would simply be an acknowledgement that the cause for which they fought, the cause of slavery, was wrong.
Yeah, that's really what it was.
That made me so happy to hear him say that at this thing.
Yeah.
But all this talk about what this flag was, and just to have him on this level at this stage, just nail it.
Yeah.
Just nail it.
At least we can go back to the one before that where he talked about the killer, and he said, here's where the killer, Dylan Roof, made a big mistake.
Blinded by hatred, the alleged killer could not see the grace surrounding Reverend Pinckney and that Bible study group. The light of love that shone as they opened the church doors and invited a stranger to join in their prayer circle.
And that was the theme that the president kept coming back to, the word grace. Grace. As Lisa told us, David Jackson, our good friend from USA Today, said the president used the word grace 34 times. And again, Dylan Roof didn't recognize the grace and the love that was in that room, and that God's grace works in mysterious ways, the president said. That grace is amazing. And he sort of built right up to where he was going to end, and boy, did he end it in a powerful way.
Amazing grace.
You're the crowd.
How sweet the sound.
And now they join in.
That saved a wretch.
And the organ joins in. And we join in. It was just amazing. I'd love to see Lindsey Graham sing. You think? The president celebrated, and then he said that every one of those 9 people found that grace, that grace. Just what a incredible moment.
I was talking to somebody over the weekend who saw that happen, and the way that it all played out, and just so masterfully the way that he did it. I said, that is one of the blackest things they've ever seen happen in America. Which is great.
Yeah.
We're at this moment where we're having these conversations about race, and he brought this up. He says it's not, just talking about it isn't always enough, and you can't just ignore it. But that was a moment where he didn't hide his blackness. He didn't hide his religion. He didn't hide his frustrations about some of the things we've got going on, the gun situation, the flag situation.
He wove it all in there. That eulogy, he could not have done that in his first term.
No way.
Yeah, but now he did, and he just captured the soul and the essence of a black church. And if you've never been this, it wasn't a church; it was an auditorium.
It was a church. It was a church. It was an arena.
It was. Yeah. And if you have never been inside of a black church, now you have, and you've seen and heard the best preacher we've got, the Reverend President Barack Obama.
This is the Bill Press Show.
I have run these canyons for 6 million years. I have traveled from the Rocky Mountains into the deserts, through scorching heat and freezing cold. From the land of the dinosaurs to fields of food.
I lend my hand to 7 states, 2 countries, 9 national parks,
and 36 million people across an arid West.
I am not the strongest or the largest, but I am the hardest working.
People love me.
My playfulness,
My beauty.
my power.
My life. But I don't think I can offer any more.
I am tired.
I am tired,
tapped,
and tied. Of the hundreds of major rivers in the world, I am one of the few who no longer kisses the sea.
Battles to harness my soul have been won and lost. Use me wisely, and I will sustain you.
Use me like you have, and I will break. My name
is
Red. The Grand River Red. The American Nile.
The Canyon Maker. I am the Colorado River.
And I am the most endangered river in America.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
This is the Bill Press Show.
27 minutes after the hour, again, Elizabeth Wydra here from the Constitutional Accountability Center at the half hour on the President's eulogy for Reverend Pinckney. Teresa out in Dillon Beach, California. Hey, Teresa.
Hi, Bill.
Hi, neighbor.
Hi. I don't know. It's nice for you to grace us and come back. Nothing new's happened at all.
No, really?
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
I thought I couldn't get through this weekend.
I know, all the
I thought
news.
last week was bad. I mean, look, Obamacare, the flag came down.
Yeah.
Gay marriage is back.
Yeah.
Obama was with David Attenborough today on BBC America talking about pollution in nature. The Pride Parade was in San Francisco. And Obama was on Maron's garage.
Yeah,
talk
Mark
show.
Maron's show. I know.
I know. I mean, is he? I mean, how many hours are in his day?
Hey, listen, Teresa, it's a great time to be a progressive. Yes, indeed. We're all on a roll. Big smile on everybody's face.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Just this month, my bill was like $138.
Even at one phone call a week cost me $40 to $50 every month.
I am living on a fixed income of SSI, so this is really a great hardship. Families are being punished. When they incarcerate their children, they incarcerate the whole family.
In 2011, the Media Action Grassroots Network, Working Narratives, and Prison Legal News founded the Campaign for Prison Phone Justice, an effort to call on the FCC to address the cost of interstate phone calls. The campaign mobilized prisoners to send hundreds of letters. Advocates and families filled out postcards, met with elected officials, and signed petitions. Partnerships were formed across the political spectrum and with groups in the criminal justice, civil rights, and public interest community. The film distribution company Participant Media and director Ava DuVernay joined the fight through a social action campaign tied to the release of the feature film Middle of Nowhere. In an effort to push the FCC to act, the campaign hosted a historic rally outside of the Federal Communications Commission where for the first time, families of prisoners, elected officials, civil rights and faith leaders came together to call for an end to predatory phone rates.
We're all held captive when predatory phone companies gouge our families.
My son has been incarcerated now for over 10 years, and my husband estimates that in the time we spent over $25,000 on prison phone calls.
My hero's not yours, you probably arrested them. Your schools probably neglected them. They spawn thoughts, you probably infected them. Feed us what you feed us, you can lay us next to them. FBI call it major crimes. Babies making babies cry.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds. At highway speeds, that's enough time to travel the length of a football field. Stop the texts, stop the wrecks.
The most valuable morning radio show, according to The Nation magazine. This is The Bill Press Show.
33 minutes after the hour, Monday, June 29. It is The Bill Press Show. On the radio, your local progressive talk radio station. On television, on Free Speech TV. And brought to you today by the American Federation of Government Employees. They do great work in all of our federal agencies, the members of the AFGE under President J. David Cox. We salute them, thank them for their support, and encourage you to check out their website at afge.org. President Obama saying Friday in the Rose Garden, justice, it seems sometimes it takes a long time, and then there are days when it hits you like a thunderbolt. And boy, did it ever. On Thursday, with the Supreme Court upholding the Affordable Care Act, and on Friday, the Supreme Court saying, in effect, yes, Equal rights under the Constitution, we do believe in that. And Elizabeth Wydra is with the Constitutional Accountability Center, their chief counsel, who filed a brief in both of those cases. Congratulations, Elizabeth, and thank you for joining us.
It's such a great day to be here with you, Bill. God, you said earlier it's a great time to be a progressive. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I guess over everything else, you have to appreciate the fact that the court did its job in these cases, didn't they? I mean, they really listened to the arguments, obviously, weighed the facts, weighed the Constitution, and I think came out in the right direction, right?
Me too. But, you're absolutely right. They did their job. And I think it's remarkable that, we had, surprisingly, the Chief Justice saying in the marriage equality cases, this isn't the court's job. But that's 100% wrong.
Yeah.
When people come to the court and say, my constitutional rights are being violated, you don't say, oh, go ask your neighbor for permission. You say, this is why we have them enshrined in our founding charter, and it's our job as judges
that was a
to vindicate that.
Bizarre argument on John Roberts' part. Almost a sore loser argument, right?
Right. Or, maybe I'd rather not have to make this decision. But you know what? You don't get to make that choice. When people come in with the Constitution behind them, it's your job as a judge, as a justice, as the Chief Justice, to vindicate those rights. And now Chief Justice Roberts is going to be a footnote to history and perhaps the most defining case of the Roberts Court.
Right. And they knew this thing was coming. But let's start with the Affordable Care Act. I mean, this was, I can't believe they took this case in the first place, right? I mean, it seemed, I'm not an attorney, but you just look at that. It was a silly case. Right?
It was silly. I mean, you don't take 4 words out of a 900-page statute and say, oh, we're only going to look at these words in isolation and pretend that the rest of reality somehow doesn't exist. So it was, the court did take it. I can see, a little bit why they did, because it's of such importance to the nation, and it might have eventually worked its way up. But, we were delighted that it was not only a victory for the Affordable Care Act, but a 6-3 victory with 2 conservatives joining the more liberal justices. And I think the president and Secretary Burwell are exactly right that this is a strong signal. The ACA is here to stay. All you conservative challengers, you got to move on.
And in this case, I thought, Roberts got it absolutely correct that, yes, the opportunity to get health insurance for your family is something that all Americans should enjoy, not just people who live in a state where the governor decides, I don't like it, so I'm not going to have an exchange. Right?
Exactly. And it just wouldn't have made sense for Congress to write a law that allowed Republican governors to tank it by saying we're not going to set up this exchange that is crucial to the operation of the law. So this was, not just a legal victory, but Roberts actually, in his opinion, sort of went through the reasons why having something like the Affordable Care Act is a good idea. So it was a broad and resounding victory for the administration.
Is this the end of the attempts to gut Obamacare?
Oh, Bill, I hope so. But
John Boehner doesn't say so, right?
I know, exactly.
Yeah.
It should be. And I do think that the 6-3 majority and the way that Roberts wrote it in a very straightforward manner is really a strong signal that they should take these fights out of the courts at the very least, because the courts don't want to be conscripted with these preposterous, fatally flawed arguments. And, if you're going to keep fighting, which I don't think you should, just as the president said, move on. But if you are, at least do it in the political sphere and not try to use the courts.
Right.
Are there any other weird outlier cases that might have to do with healthcare that they might have to deal with at some point in the future?
That are working their way up?
So there's a talk about flimsy arguments. There is one on the origination clause. I actually argued part of this case in New Orleans. Some folks are saying that there's a part of the Constitution says that all revenue bills must originate in the House, and so some are saying that because the Senate modified the language of the original bill. Anyway, But yes, so I think that qualifies as an outlier.
Yeah, that's pretty far
crazy
out there,
challenge to the ACA.
Okay.
But who knows? People are determined. They might come up with other arguments. But I think this is sort of the Roberts Court saying the courts aren't really going to play along with your political agenda, masked in legal arguments.
But of course, politically, they've tried to repeal it over 50 times. So
and they can't.
They haven't done too well in the political.
That's why they're going to the courts. And the courts are saying, count us out.
And remember, we all should remember, this is the second time the conservative Roberts Court has said no.
Exactly.
Right. You guys are wrong. Right?
Exactly.
Marriage equality, 5-4, not 6-3. I was hoping it might be 6-3.
Me too.
But still, a resounding victory for the Constitution. I mean, I was telling Peter earlier, I saw some headline. I was out of town on Friday on the Boston Globe, and it was just sort of like equal rights for all. And I thought, boy, what a basic concept. What a novel concept, right?
Exactly.
It took us this long to get there.
And Justice Kennedy's opinion really was just, a profound invocation of those principles in the 14th Amendment. He said not only the due process protection of liberty, but also the Equal Protection Clause have interlocking protections that give equal dignity to all. Its reach of liberty extends to all. And it really was just a wonderful, as a constitutional lawyer, I just thought it was one of the most beautiful things I've seen written about the Constitution's guarantee of equality in a long time.
Yeah, no, is a very such an important moment and such a. I mean, I think it'll go down as one of the most important decisions of any Supreme Court.
Absolutely, because it spoke, not just to this historic movement in the law, but also the way that it was written spoke to our shared humanity and the reason why we have these constitutional protections.
Now, how can Scalia say, this means democracy is dead?
Yeah, that I
mean, he was so over the top.
So over the top. And it betrays a misunderstanding of the Constitution. And I don't know, whatever derangement syndrome he has that causes him to think that way, but that's not how it works.
The originalist, right?
Yes.
You would think that he was the one who said, I'm sorry, the Constitution says equal rights for all. That's what the 14th Amendment says. You can't say except for LGBT people.
Yes. Yeah, you look at the words of the Constitution and it clearly applies. And, he's just absolutely flat out wrong on that.
Not much attention to the housing discrimination decision. Tell us about that one.
So this was also a huge win for the Obama administration and, frankly, for, again, the principles of equality that we saw vindicated this week in the marriage ruling. So there was there's been a long-going attempt to try to prevent claims that talk about disparate impact, which means something that might appear fair in form but could have a discriminatory effect on certain minority groups. They've tried to prevent those claims from being brought in the housing context under the Fair Housing Act.
Oh, yeah.
This has been a sort of ongoing conservative effort, in this case led by the state of Texas. And progressives like me who've been filing in these cases have been very nervous because every single court to have considered the issue has said absolutely the statute allows for these sorts of claims because we need to root out these structural institutions of racism, lingering effects of Jim Crow and slavery. But the Supreme Court has tried to take this case several times. And since there was no disagreement amongst the lower courts, we were very nervous that the court was going to gut the Fair Housing Act like they did the Voting Rights Act a couple of years ago. But instead, there was this very surprising ruling with Justice Kennedy, again, joining with the more liberal justices.
Another 5-4.
Another 5-4, saying that, we need this protection in order to move forward. And I think, recent events in Ferguson, Baltimore, and Charleston show that we are at this crucial point in moving toward racial justice. And so I think the court's decision, if they'd gone the other way, would have been a huge mistake. And I'm deeply relieved that they didn't.
Were you surprised by the fact that, some of the comments from the 16 Republican candidates, every one of the 16 Republican candidates for president 2016 came out publicly to disagree with the marriage equality ruling, particularly. Some of them, like Ted Cruz says, this means we have to have elections every 2 years to reaffirm the Supreme Court justices, right? Or who was it called for the constitutional? Scott Walker, a constitutional amendment.
Right. I think Bobby Jindal will just get rid of the court altogether.
Bobby Jindal would get rid of the court.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's preposterous. And frankly, it's
none of it's going to happen.
None of it is going to happen. And, Ted Cruz with his, we should have elections. Like, we want the court to be more like Congress.
Yeah.
Does anyone think that's a good idea?
Yeah. I was on board with that.
Right. That's going really well. But, it's also funny because in many ways, Kennedy's ruling is a very conservative values kind of ruling. It extols the virtue of marriage and its keystone role in society.
I know. Yeah. Actually, I'm not. I think Ted Cruz may be onto something. I'd love to be able to vote on Clarence Thomas.
Hey, Scalia likes democracy,
That's right. Yeah. Now, there are 3 more important cases to be decided today. We'll talk about those when we come back with Elizabeth Wydra from the Constitutional Accountability Center. And you can celebrate the decisions of last week by giving us a call at 866-55-PRESS.
This is the Bill Press Show.
It is possible to read the history of this country as one long struggle to extend the liberties established in our Constitution to everyone in America. In other words, who, according to our laws and culture, gets to be considered a person? The law creates legal personhood, and movements create law and change culture. So, how have the courts passed laws to shape our culture? That history goes way back before Citizens United. 1819, Dartmouth College versus Woodward, Supreme Court case, turned a corporate charter from a government-granted charter to a contract. This ruling gave corporations standing within the Constitution. 1886, Santa Clara County versus Southern Pacific Railroad. Though the court did not rule on corporate personhood, the decision was subsequently cited as a precedent to hold that a private corporation is entitled to the same 14th Amendment rights of due process and equal protection as human beings. This makes it impossible for us to make laws that treat local businesses any differently than giant multinational corporations, even if their business practices are deemed to be harmful to workers, the environment, and communities, or if they have a history of violating the law. Hale versus Henkel, 1906. The court granted corporations the Fourth Amendment search and seizure protection. Dodge versus Ford Motor Company, 1919. The Michigan Supreme Court says the business corporation is organized and carried on primarily for the profit of the stockholders. Stockholder primacy is established. The purpose of the corporation, according to the court, is no longer to serve the public good, as it had been. It is now to maximize profit for shareholders above all else. Pennsylvania Coal Company versus Mahon, 1922. Corporations get the Fifth Amendment takings clause, meaning if you pass a regulation that impacts a corporation's ability to make a profit, that is deemed a taking, and they can sue for the right to future profits lost. This creates a chilling effect, and local and state governments become much more hesitant to pass laws in the public interest for fear that corporations can claim loss of potential profits that cities and states will be on the hook to pay. Buckley versus Vallejo, 1976. The Supreme Court rules that spending money to influence elections is protected under the First Amendment, in effect saying that money is speech. Citizens United versus Federal Election Commission, 2010.
Today, the Supreme Court of Chief Justice John Roberts declared that because of the alchemy of its 19th century predecessors in deciding that corporations had all the rights of people, any restrictions on how these corporate beings spend their money on political advertising are unconstitutional.
The court's ruling threatens to undermine the integrity of elected institutions across the nation. It's a rejection of the common sense of the American people.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
You got it 13 minutes before the top of the hour. The Supreme Court is the focus of most of the news these days, and there'll be more news today. Elizabeth Wydra will be there, actually commenting for CNN as the decisions come down. She's the chief counsel for the Constitutional Accountability Center. How do you find out? You can't listen in, so how do you find out what the decisions are? The rulings are.
It's the time-honored running of the interns. Those hardy kids with their running shoes on get the hard copy opinions from the press office inside the courthouse, and then run as fast as they possibly can out to those of us in front of the cameras on the plaza in front of the courthouse. And
do they get it before the judges have announced their decision or after?
It's pretty much instantaneous.
Really?
When the chief says, Justice Kennedy has the opinion in 14-114, then they open the box and it's a huge frenzy.
Oh, really? And then they turn around and they're... Yes. But the people who have tickets are not allowed to run out and back and forth,
No.
right? These are just the interns.
Yes, because they're not in the courtroom. They're at the press office.
I got it.
But, actually, all the folks who were in the courtroom for the marriage equality announcement of that ruling, there was a second opinion that Justice Scalia read after about the Armed Career Criminal Act, which, for legal wonks is actually a very interesting opinion. But, he said, don't leave, because, everyone wanted to run out and celebrate the big win. So if you're in the courtroom, you have to stay and have decorum, and you can't, sort of want to sing the songs that you want to sing and, cheer.
I'll be there today. So am I allowed to, stand up and cheer?
No.
Am I allowed to take...
The marshals might take you out.
Yeah, right. I mean, you could try.
Can I tweet from there?
No. Oh, Bill, you'd be calling me from, the Supreme Court slammer if, you tried to do all
Right.
this. Yeah.
It's actually not a bad idea to make sure you have her number on speed dial in case this happens.
But what you bring up, Bill, is a great point because the American people don't get to hear these. Don't get to see them, and they don't get to hear the announcements, and they rely on those of us who have some sort of inside connection, whether through the press or the bar or whatever, to get in, because the number of people who actually get to witness this history in person is very small.
I do have to say, when I saw those interns running with the decisions, all I could think is, I can't believe it's 2015.
Yes.
and this is how we get information out?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's a little kooky.
But I remember one case, I think it was Bush v. Gore, when they rushed the decisions out, and I remember the people, you did too, on camera,
Oh, yes.
reading the decisions and didn't know what the hell the decision said, and some of them got it wrong.
Oh, right, absolutely.
Yeah. Was that Bush?
Yeah,
v.
Bush
Gore?
v. Gore, and actually, it happened to some folks. Not the outfit I was working with, but it happened to some folks on the first ACA.
Yes, I remember
ruling.
that. Yeah.
Because you do have you get them very quickly, and unless it's written very clearly up front, you got to read to the end, or you don't know what happened.
Yeah, right. Okay. Now, so what the three cases that are up today? The lethal injection, roughly, which is what...
Yeah, I mean, so this is the last day of the term, and there are still big opinions to come down, sort of overshadowed by last week.
Right.
But, first is this challenge under the Eighth Amendment, which prohibits cruel and unusual punishment, to this lethal injection protocol. And, the death penalty has been ruled constitutional by the Supreme Court, and many states try to use this lethal injection as a more, quote unquote, humane
right.
Way to execute the death penalty. And many drug manufacturers have not allowed their drugs to be used in lethal injection because they object to the death penalty. And so that has caused states to have to scramble to try to get other drugs. And they're simply, as the prisoner petitioner in this case says, there just isn't the science to support that these drugs work in a humane way. And we've seen some botched executions. And so the arguments in this case were incredibly tense and bitter, with the justices fighting amongst each other, saying that, what essentially was trying to happen was opponents of the death penalty were trying to de facto ban it by preventing these drugs from becoming available, even though it has been ruled constitutional and these sentences were, under that validly given.
All right. And the EPA case is...
Yeah, so this is a big case about mercury emissions, and I think it's a toss-up which way it goes. It's an Obama administration rule that tries to prevent mercury under the Clean Air Act, a lot of mercury poisoning and mercury pollution in our waters. And if the rule that the Obama administration has put forth would prevent about 11,000 deaths, it's very important.
Mm-hmm. And then the final one is on redistricting, that legislatures, some people have said that the Constitution says the legislature must do it. They can't have an independent commission do it.
Right. So some states have tried to take some of the partisanship out of drawing congressional districts.
My state of California.
Yeah, which seems like a pretty good idea. And there's been a challenge to that as unconstitutional because, as you said, the Elections Clause does mention the legislature. This one might get kicked out on a procedural standing ground. We're not entirely sure, but that's definitely one to watch, and that will impact a lot of states, including California.
Yeah, meaning if states that have done that might have to redraw all their lines if the court were to rule that.
Exactly, and it would get kicked back to the legislature, and the reforms that where they're trying to put forth would be thwarted.
It's going to be hard to behave with these decisions.
I have faith in you, Bill.
Again, yeah, I'm going to keep my phone by me, Bill.
Maybe I'll be part of Code Pink today.
Exactly. Oh, no.
Get my banner. Hold up my banner. Oh, God. Elizabeth, it's such a treat to have you here today. Anytime, but particularly today's a great day to be here and to celebrate with you.
Yes, thank you, Bill. It's been great.
Congratulations. I'll see you down to court a little bit later.
Absolutely.
The Constitutional Center, Accountability Center, theusconstitution.org. theusconstitution.org. We'll be right back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
I'm the retired bishop with the Episcopal Church as the bishop for all chaplains in federal service. I read that there was a group of people that represented a sense of injustice that I had. We'd lost Zuccotti. I mean, there was a kind of a hope that maybe Trinity Church would be gracious and give refuge. We picked this day where we would gather and demonstrate that Trinity was closing its ears to what was happening. We marched around the block, and I realized that, my goodness, they're carrying a ladder. And I thought, well, this is the moment. You could feel a spiritual presence. You could feel a certain something. And then the cops came in. It got brutal.
I'm with you right here. Robin, I'm here.
The church needed, in this moment in history, to stand alongside of these protesters. The truth of Christ is found in the pews, is found in the institutional church, but it is also found in the streets. It's found in the honesty and the integrity, the insistence of people that you find in Occupy Wall Street.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies.
In Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania.
Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water. Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer. Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now.
Please.
This is the Bill Press Show.
President Obama has a signing ceremony today, signing H.R. 2146, Defending Public Safety Employees Retirement Act. He'll be doing that in the East Room this afternoon. And then this evening, he has a working dinner with the President of Brazil, President Dilma Rousseff. Remember, she canceled her last planned trip to the United States when it was revealed we were spying on her cell phone.
Awkward.
Yeah, I guess she's now ready to move on. And we have our briefing today with Josh Earnest at 12:30 at the White House briefing room. Remember, follow me on Twitter and follow my tweets from the briefing room. We'll be back and talk Obamacare.
This is the Bill Press Show.
So this is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. Pressing down, I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you come.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan. Big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
Hello, what do you say, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, friends and neighbors? It is Monday, June 29. Good to see you today, and welcome to the Bill Press Show. I hope you had a great weekend, ready to dive into the news of the week, and I got to tell you what a week it has been. We're here with you, by the way, of course, on Free Speech TV and worldwide on our video stream, youtube.com/TawkrTV. Yep, we progressives will never see another week like we had last week. 3 huge victories. First, we saw the Confederate flag fall in the South. It won't be back. It'll be in museums where it belongs, alongside of statues of many of the leaders of the Confederacy. And a big victory again for conservatives and a big loss for conservatives. For progressives and a big loss for conservatives. The other victory, of course, on Thursday, the judges on the Supreme Court, 6-3, standing up to affirm Obamacare, that subsidies should be extended to those who otherwise could not afford health insurance for their families. Those subsidies should be extended to people in all 50 states. Again, a huge loss for conservatives. A big victory for President Obama and for progressives nationwide. And then Friday, 5-4, the Supreme Court saying, yes, equal rights under the Constitution, including the right to love the one you love and to marry the one you love, should be nationwide in all 50 states. God bless America. What another great victory. And by the way, icing on the cake, Bernie Sanders is now within 8 points of Hillary Clinton up in New Hampshire. So it's a great time to be a progressive. Let's celebrate. 866-55-PRESS is our toll-free number. Join the conversation. Join the fun. Good to have you with us.
This is the Bill Press Show.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies.
In Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania.
Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water.
Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer.
Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now.
Please.
On your TV and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
The Pope, he is at it again. Came out over the weekend and said that gun manufacturers are immoral. God, I love this Pope. Hey, hello, everybody. What do you say? Monday, June 29. Great to see you. It is the Bill Press Show. We are here in Washington, D.C., our nation's capital, and we are there with you wherever you are in this great land of ours, coast to coast, on your local radio station and on Free Speech TV worldwide. We join you on our video stream, TawkrTV, youtube.com/TawkrTV. Hope you had a great weekend, ready to dive into the news of the week, and there's a lot to talk about, particularly riding on the crest of the 2 big Supreme Court decisions, Thursday and Friday. Thursday on the Affordable Care Act, Friday on marriage equality. And 3 more decisions will be announced today at 10 a.m. East Coast time. And I'm lucky enough to have a ticket, and I'll be in the courtroom when those announcements are made. First time I've ever been inside the Supreme Court of the United States. I'm looking forward to it.
It'll be fun, man.
I'll be practicing law again without a license. I guess, but anyhow.
You better behave, Bill.
I'm just dreading the call of what's going to happen when you start shouting or they catch you and you snuck your phone in and you're tweeting from the.
I'd love to be able to tweet from there. Do you think
why do you want to risk it in the Supreme Court of all places?
Well, by the way, we have to welcome our guest, Peter Ogburn and Lisa Murphy, heading our team.
Hey, good morning.
Get that. Jamie Benson, he's on the phones. He'll take your calls at 866-55-PRESS. And you can't see him, but you can see us, thanks to Cyprian Bolding, our videographer. And Jay Angoff is the former director of the Department of HHS, Health and Human Services, Office of Consumer Information and Insurance Oversight. That's a long title. But you were in charge of Obamacare in the beginning.
Yeah, that's a big word for Obamacare implementation.
All right, we got it. Jay, welcome. So you're an attorney. What can I do in the courtroom today, and what can I do?
Well, despite your the advice you just got, you can't tweet.
No tweeting.
And you can't shout out.
No.
So you should just sit quietly, respectfully, like everyone else.
I'm sorry, have you met Bill? This is a tall order for him.
That's hard enough for me to do at the White House briefing every day.
You know, I don't know. Do they remove people from the Supreme Court? I don't know.
Oh, I'll bet they do.
Well, you don't want to be in that group.
No. Well, for the first time? I guess my behavior is going to depend on how well Scalia behaves.
Well, then you better be prepared to be removed.
So James here to tell us about the Supreme Court decision on Obamacare, where we go from here. Debbie Hines, our legal analyst, one of our legal analysts, will be along to talk about Charleston at the half hour.
I think it's great we have all these lawyer types in today, just in case
you need them.
You need them, yeah.
Yeah, I better get your cell phone before you leave. But first, these are the headlines.
This is the Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other stories making news. We go to Modesto, California. Now, a couple of months ago, I told you the story about this man who was flying his drone, and it went over into his neighbor's property. Mm-hmm. His neighbor was not happy. So he took out a shotgun and he shot the drone out of the sky.
Was this Barack Obama did
it? It was not Barack Obama who did this, and this wasn't the White House where this happened. Oh. But the man who was flying the drone...
You know what? Good for him.
Well, here's the deal. The man who was flying the drone demanded that the man pay him back $750. That's how much it costs for one of these types of drones. And the man said he wasn't going to pay. So they took him to court, and the court found in the favor of the man who was flying the drone, not the man who shot it out of the sky. What do you think about that, Bill?
I'm for the man who shot it out of the sky. But what I also know about this is it was one shot. One shot, one drone down.
That's pretty great, man. That's pretty great.
My neighbor were buzzing a drone over my house. I do think I'd talk to him first, right? I wouldn't shoot first, but...
Diplomacy always first, then your gun.
That's an invasion of your property and privacy, isn't it, Mr. Attorney?
Yeah, but my expertise is limited to the Affordable Care Act.
Oh, you can't cop out like that.
Well, part of what the court said is that the precedent this would set for future aircraft, even though drones aren't technically aircraft, is that what would this mean to other types of aircraft, such as low-flying planes? You can't shoot a gun at those either.
No.
So that's sort of where they fell in the
I think you
term.
can make a distinction with a drone. But I just want you to know, I have expertise in nothing but opinions on everything.
Well, then that's a big club.
Yeah, it is. Right. So we talked last week about the fight between Taylor Swift and Apple Music and how she wrote this big piece.
By the way, I went to see Taylor Swift's house again this weekend.
Oh, I thought you said you went to see Taylor Swift. I was waiting to get your concert
house
review.
Up in Watch Hill, Rhode Island.
Yeah, there you go.
Property.
Well, Taylor Swift made it official. She is putting her
$17 million. What you pay for that house?
Is that right? Well, she certainly got it. Well, this is going to be good news then, because she's about to make a lot more money because she reversed her decision of not putting her album 1989 on Apple Music.
I thought Apple caved, though.
They did cave, but she still wasn't going to put... She still made the announcement that she was going to put it on Apple Music. So now that they've caved, she is officially putting it on Apple Music. She tweeted that out at the end of last week. Now, some people have brought up conspiracy theory here. Maybe they were working together to drum up some promotion for the fact that you can now get it on Apple Music when it rolls out. I'm just reporting. You can decide.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, that's sort of like when, do you remember when Coke came out with New Coke?
Yeah, yeah.
And that was a disaster, but the same conspiracy theorists thought the same thing about that. They thought it was a deliberate PR move to come out with the New Coke and then have people just clamor for it and love the old Coke so much, they had to bring it back.
Yeah.
Well, if it was a conspiracy, it was successful.
It worked. It worked. And LeBron James has informed the Cleveland Cavaliers that he is going to opt out of his contract. Now, it should be noted that this doesn't necessarily mean that he's leaving Cleveland.
He just gets more money.
He's going to redo his contract. This is exactly what he did with the Miami Heat, though, this time a year ago.
And he did move on.
So we will see. We will see what happens. But Cleveland Cavaliers fans are freaking out just a little bit. LeBron's agent, Rich Paul, has confirmed that he is opting out of his contract. So we'll see what happens.
Well, as we just saw with the playoffs without LeBron.
look, LeBron James is the best player in basketball today, so he could do whatever he wants to do. So it would be really difficult for him to walk away from the Cavaliers. It would be real after the whole rollout that they did a year ago. But people in Cleveland are a little freaking.
Okay. You got it. Thank you, Peter. Jay Angoff. So, were you surprised by the Supreme Court decision?
No, I wasn't surprised. That's easy to say for people, but I actually, well before the decision, said that I didn't think it was that it was a serious case. I thought the press was overblowing it. This was a case brought by lawyers on a technical legal issue. It put lawyers in the worst possible light. So no, I was not surprised.
And the whole thing centered around this phrase, right? As created by the state or as
right, an exchange established by the state,
right? And not that it was all semantics, but their argument was that state just meant state government, whereas really state has always meant kind of government.
Well, they argue that you just have to look at these four words and have to disregard the 1,000+ state pages of the statute. And they argued that the statute ought to be interpreted in a way that frustrates the purpose of the statute. Yeah. And Roberts said, correctly, I believe, and I think most people would agree with that, Roberts said, essentially, that's crazy. You don't interpret the language of a statute the language of a phrase in a statute in a way that's going to frustrate the purpose of the statute.
Of the entire statute.
Yeah. He said the Affordable Care Act was brought to improve the workings of the health insurance system, not to screw it up. And that's what these lawyers are trying to do.
I thought that Roberts' decision could have been written by Kathleen Sebelius or Barack Obama. I mean, he basically said, health, I mean, or I wouldn't say as far as Bernie Sanders, but I mean, he really made this a strong argument for Obamacare.
He certainly did, and that's a great point. And one of the reasons, I don't want to be too cynical, but let's not forget where John Roberts comes from. Let's not forget what he's done his whole career. He's been either a Republican administration lawyer or a corporate lawyer. And with all the hubbub around the Affordable Care Act, many people fail to realize is this is a law that's been a tremendous benefit to the insurance industry.
Yeah, yeah.
And he really adopted in his opinion. This doesn't make it wrong, but he really adopted the rationale of the insurance industry and the insurance industry's friend of the court brief. The industry loves this law. I mean, it benefits people, but it really benefits the private insurance industry because this is a law that requires people to buy a product sold by the private insurance companies, and it requires taxpayers to pay a substantial portion of the premium of many people who buy the policies. So it is a tremendous benefit to the insurance industry. It's a law that the administration wanted and that benefits people, but it also benefits insurers, benefits hospitals, and benefits business in general.
Amen to all of that. So wouldn't it have been a stronger challenge to the Affordable Care Act to say government should not be able to force us to buy a product?
Well, that was...
Does the government force us to buy anything else? I guess car insurance. Yeah.
Well, and it's really the government's not really. That's the decision 2 years ago. Yeah. The government's not really forcing you to buy the product. It's giving people a choice. You don't have to buy it, but if you don't buy it, then you've got to pay a penalty or a tax. The administration didn't want to use the word tax, but you see, so it does give you a choice. But that issue was decided 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. That was the big issue, and
that was a more more believable case, perhaps. Huh?
True. And that was a 5-4 decision. I mean, the fact that this decision is 6-3 is a very big deal. 6-3 is a lot more than 5-4. Mm-hmm. And so the fact that you've got not just one of the conservative justices, but two of them, one of whom is the Chief Justice. Yeah. Is a very big deal, and it really does, I think, put to rest any serious legal challenge to the Affordable Care Act.
So Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act, is here to stay, as the president said in the Rose Garden on Friday.
Yeah, it's here to stay. Actually, it's here to stay. I think the opponents realize that, and for as much as the
John Boehner doesn't seem to.
Well, but you see, the decision. it didn't just give the proponents of the Affordable Care Act what they wanted. The proponents were relieved when this decision came down, but they weren't as relieved as the opponents. The opponents, imagine how horrified they'd be if they actually had to come up with an alternative. If they actually had to take away the benefits that Obamacare's already given people.
They've had 5 years to come up with an alternative, and they haven't come up with one yet, right?
Right. And
they stopped saying repeal and replace because they had nothing to replace.
Well, that's right. So they just want to continue to campaign against Obamacare for the next 2 years. God bless them. But once Obama's gone, the steam it's tough to campaign against Obamacare when Obama's no longer president. So they get 2 more years to campaign Obamacare, to talk about repealing Obamacare, which is exactly what they want because they don't have an alternative. I mean, imagine what the Republican governors in states who are anti-Obama, but they would be in the position of taking benefits away, taking subsidies away from people who are already receiving them. I mean, that's the last thing they wanted. That's the last thing Republican governors wanted, last thing congressional Republicans wanted.
So it's here to stay. Is it working?
Yeah, it's working.
I mean, you were one of the architects of it, and you were there.
No, but Bill, I've got to stop you there. I wasn't an architect. There are dozens of people running around saying they were the architect of the Affordable Care Act. Well, and I just want to make clear, no, I was not an architect.
Giving you credit you don't deserve that. Okay, but you were there. You were there at HHS and implementation of it, right?
Yeah.
So you have a little, at stake here, right? I mean, is it working the way you thought it would work?
Yes. It's really, I mean, step back from it. I just think you've got to give the president so much credit for sticking with this through so much criticism for so many years. It is working. More people are getting coverage, and more people are going to continue to get coverage. Now, I think it's very important that that both state and federal government do as much as they can to keep rates down. I mean, the insurance companies have just filed their rates for 2016.
Yeah.
And the states, in many cases, in other cases, the federal government, have got a rule on whether those rates are reasonable. And so I think it's very important for the regulator, whether it's the state or the federal government, not to just rubber stamp the rates that the insurance companies propose to charge. So there's no question more people are getting coverage, no question that the rate of healthcare inflation has slowed down, but it's just important to make sure that healthcare inflation stays down as low as possible.
There in the beginning at HHS with Obamacare, Jay Angoff, former director of the Obamacare Implementation Office.
That's a great way to say it.
Here, your questions and your comments at 866-55-PRESS. We'll be right back on Obamacare.
West here reporting from Houston, Texas for Climate Desk. Now, one of the biggest uncertainties in climate science right now is the role of clouds. What better way to work that part out than flying right through them? That's what NASA scientists aboard this airplane think. Welcome to NASA's biggest airborne laboratory. You're coming with us today on an 8-hour NASA flight mission.
When you read these big IPCC climate assessments, what's the biggest uncertainty? There's 2, right? The role of aerosols and clouds. Clouds is probably bigger than aerosols.
That is a piece of a puzzle that right now we are missing.
You can't get the models right if you don't understand the chemistry and the process.
Now we're being told we've got to get on. The doors are about to shut, so let's go aboard. Every time you turn on the weather, every time you hear a climate change prediction, that information has to come from somewhere. And it starts by getting sucked out of the air from planes like this.
So this mission is to try to understand the emissions from the surface, so mostly biogenic emissions. So from trees and other plants.
Right now we're flying to our very first part of this experiment on the DC-8. Over Arkansas, there's a particularly pungent bouquet of emissions that scientists are interested in measuring.
Well, these emissions lead to both aerosols and to molecules that both destroy and create ozone. So these are very important things to understand for climate studies.
How it will manifest itself, it will be in more accurate and more reliable predictions.
So what we're doing is taking a series of flyovers, each at a different level of the atmosphere, scooping up those emissions, testing them, and hopefully scientists are going to see exactly what's in this column of air all the way up.
The data that we collect in one flight can keep busy 60 scientists and students for 3 years, 4 years. We are still studying data from data collected 20 years ago.
In fact, this particular mission today is its most heavily equipped in its nearly 30 years of service. Each one of these consoles here is a specially equipped scientific instrument designed to collect all sorts of different data in real time.
And this instrument here tracks the sun.
We're looking at mist chambers. They're used to strip soluble gases.
This black line is the CO2. It's about 390 ppm right now.
We're putting these filters in the bags that we've got the aerosols that we trapped out of a certain amount of air. And so we're sampling up here about 150 liters a minute.
That ultimately flows back into the operational models. It flows back into what goes on TV every day.
Anyway, I got to get this sample going.
You do it. It's a busy man at work. We can't let him rest. Well, get this. We've just spent 2 hours crisscrossing this one cloud formation. In, back out again, back in again.
Then they grow, and we track them as long as we can, and then we let it go.
Even one cloud can hold a host of answers to the mysteries of climate change.
The patterns of, where the clouds are, what type of clouds we see, what kind of weather systems they're associated with it, that'll all be shifting in a shifting climate, in a world with climate change.
Then the big spark is this, is when we actually get the meat on the grill. And then it will be some time to process it.
After the Supreme Court's big endorsement 6-3 last week with Jay Angoff, former director of the Obamacare Implementation Office at HHS. Jay, not all liberals are as happy as you and I are with the Supreme Court decision. Bernie Sanders was on This Week yesterday with George Stephanopoulos, and Bernie says it's still not good enough.
We are the only major country on earth that doesn't guarantee health care to all people as a right. And yet we end up spending much more than they do. So I do believe that we have to move toward a Medicare for all, single-payer system.
Single-payer system. Why was it taken off the table early on?
Well, it's not a single-payer system, and I hate to say this to Bernie and his friends. Right. And it's not going to be a single-payer system. The irony is, despite the rhetoric of the anti-Obamacare people about how this is a government takeover of health insurance, that couldn't be farther from the truth. It is a system that relies entirely on the private insurance industry.
Right. But should there be a public plan option the way that as the president proposed in the beginning?
I was never that enamored of the public option because what I was afraid of, and you see this is in other types of insurance, would be that would become the dumping ground for the people that the private insurers don't want. A system that relies on the private insurers, I think, can work. And as we talked earlier, I think this is working. I think it could work better if the government were tougher on insurers, if they standardized the benefit package and they established a competitive bidding process under which if insurers gave the government a low price, they'd be able to sell. But if they didn't, they wouldn't. And that would give the government tremendous bargaining power, and that would really drive prices down.
And will this will this end up being universal health insurance?
No, it'll be near universal. It is near universal. It'll become nearer to universal. But no, it's not going to be 100%. It's not single payer. It's not the National Health Service in Great Britain. But it's a big improvement from where we were.
Absolutely. Well, congratulations to you, and thank you for your leadership and your role in getting it where we are today. And thanks for coming in today.
Hey, thanks. It's been a pleasure.
Again. Thanks, Jeff.
This is the Bill Press Show.
They called her Little Sanju. She was born in a village at the foot of the Himalayas, the smallest of 7 brothers and sisters.
My family was very poor. To get by, we raised cows and we made small things for tourists out of bamboo. But we were always hungry, and no matter how hard he tried, my father was always in debt. When I was 11, my father told me I had to go to work making carpets. I had to leave with a man who took me to the carpet factory. The broker who took me away got paid, but they never paid my father anything. I made knots from 4 in the morning until 8 at night. There was never a day off. I was always hungry. I cut my fingers while weaving and had to weave with cut fingers. My hands began to look like my grandmother's. I cried every night. I thought the rest of my life would be only this.
It takes 1 million knots to make one 8x10 rug. In the 1990s, 1 million children were enslaved making carpets in South Asia. Then a hero entered the picture. It was you. If you knew how these carpets were made, you would no longer think they were so beautiful. And if you could choose a better rug, your buying power could end child slavery in the rug industry. From that simple idea, Goodweave was born. Here's how it works. To earn the Goodweave label, companies agreed not to employ children. Goodweave makes sure by conducting surprise inspections. When children are found, Goodweave helps them.
2 years ago, a Goodweave inspector named Grona found me in the factory. When I saw him, I was scared, but Grona put his arm around me and told me it would be okay. Grona took me to Hamro Gar, a home for rescued carpet kids run by Goodweave. I'm the first person in my family to ever go to school.
Today, thousands of children like Sanju have been educated and rescued by Goodweave. And because you chose the Goodweave label, 3/4 of those million children weaving carpets are now free. And Sanju? With Goodweave's support, she's able to attend her village school and live at home where she belongs. Now that's a beautiful rug that tells a beautiful story. Stand with Sanju. Insist on the Goodweave label.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies.
In Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania.
Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water.
Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer.
Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now.
Please.
The most valuable morning radio show, according to The Nation magazine. This is The Bill Press Show.
All right, 33 minutes after the hour. The Bill Press Show on Monday, June 29. We're here in Washington, D.C., our nation's capital. We're on Capitol Hill, and we're brought to you today by the International Association of Sheet Metal, Air, Rail, and Transportation Workers. The good men and women of the SMART Union, that's what they're called, giving a fair day's work for a fair day's pay. Under President Joseph Sellers, their new president. You can find out more about their, we salute them, thank them for their support, and encourage you to check out their website at smart-union.org. We have heard President Obama give many amazing speeches, but nothing as amazing as his eulogy on Friday for the Reverend Clementa Pinckney, the pastor of Mother Emanuel Church in Charleston, South Carolina. Debbie Hines, our legal analyst and trial lawyer, joins us this morning. Debbie, it's good to see you again.
Same here as always.
This was a celebration of the life of Reverend Pinckney and a celebration of the black church and the role of the black church, too, in society, which really struck me.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I just love the speech. I mean, sitting there in the moment, it was hard to digest all of it, but afterwards going back and reflecting and actually reading portions of it, I mean, he did everything that I think he had to do in the speech. I mean, he was not only just a politician in chief, he was the preacher in chief.
Oh, yeah.
He was the historian in chief. He was the healer in chief. And he broke down and explained each and every element and reason as to why he was going into each topic, and always keeping with the two key elements in the black church of faith and grace. It was a wonderful speech.
It was one of the most amazing things I've ever seen from any speech I've ever seen.
You're right. Listening to it, hearing it, seeing it, and then if you reread it and just see the way the themes, he wove the theme, particularly of grace, all the way through and ending, of course, with
grace.
With the triumph of singing Amazing Grace. And again, to celebrate the role of the black church, like you said, people ask, how could he be a preacher and a public servant at the same time? He said, people ask that question. They don't know what the black church is all about.
Exactly. And, because people get confused with the thing of separation of, religion and church. But for the black church, and President Obama broke this down, the black church is everything to African Americans. I mean, it is social justice. It is jobs. It's the voting.
Gospel.
It's the gospel. It's interwoven within the message of Christianity. So those things are not separate in terms of what we talk about in terms of religion. They're not separate things. They're all woven into the teachings of the Bible. So there is no separation between being a preacher and being a public servant. I mean, that's really what Christianity is really about.
Yeah, absolutely. A couple of phrases that I wrote down. No distinction, he said, between a pastor and being a pastor and being a public servant. No distinction.
Right.
And then he said, the sweet hour of prayer lasts all week long.
Right. And that's true. It's not just
wonderful way.
Right. It's not just a Sunday thing. It's an everyday, or should be an everyday way of life, and that's what's taught within the African American churches across the country.
And some people, obviously, the people filled with hate, a lot of them know that, which is why black churches have been the targets of violence and arson and the burning of the black churches through the South, over the years. And like they always thought that this is a way they could put down the black community. President Obama made that point that Dylan Roof might have thought that too.
Blinded by hatred, the alleged killer could not see the grace surrounding Reverend Pinckney and that Bible study group. The light of love that shone as they opened the church doors and invited a stranger to join in their prayer circle.
Yeah, so he might have thought that this would lead to division in the community, and instead, boy, he misread it.
And that's one of the other teachings that President Obama didn't say specifically, but it's the teaching that we're taught that, what man meant for evil, God can change it around for good. And that was just a classic example of what he was talking about at that moment.
Yeah, boy, can you imagine? There's no other president who could have risen to the occasion like President Obama did.
Exactly. And for African Americans, it was everything, because there have been times in the past, and I have also been critical, where there have been those moments where he should have spoken of something on race and explaining, how we feel about situations. And he's kind of sort of just, skirted the issue a little bit and not really delved deeply in it. And this was his opportunity. This was his chance. I just felt it was genuine. It was from the heart. And he just really pretty much delved as deeply as he could go, explaining to everyone what this moment was about.
And then he dared move on to basically saying, so this isn't enough, right? First of all, we got to deal with this flag issue.
Right,
tie that in.
Right.
And he said, so we will bring the flag down. And he talks about, if you have that, why we should bring the flag down. Here's the president again.
Okay. Removing the flag from this state's capital would not be an act of political correctness. It would not be an insult to the valor of Confederate soldiers. It would simply be an acknowledgement that the cause for which they fought, the cause of slavery, was wrong.
Boom. End of story, right?
And the other line that he said that I just love that went with that is that as Americans, we appreciate history. We just don't appreciate each other's history. And that's the flip side of the Confederate flag. It's like, well, we know you want it to be about history, but it's our history that we were enslaved as African Americans. And that's what it speaks to us. It may speak something else to white Southerners, but this is what it speaks to us. So he was good with that too.
And again, he said, and we don't even stop at the flag because that's kind of going on now. He said, and I was just, again, jotting down notes as I was listening, we got to be talking about looking at poverty, at schools, inequality in schools, lack of jobs for young African Americans, the overwhelming number of young African Americans who make up our prison population.
The line about the jobs, where he said where James is getting the call and Jamal is not.
Exactly.
We'll call Johnny back for a second interview, but not Jamal.
Not Jamal. I mean,
he
drove
that point home. Better.
Yeah, I mean, he just really just said it in ways that hopefully Americans will, recall it and act on it. And that was the other part that I love because, we've been talking all along in the past about we need to have this discussion on race. Why won't the president discuss race? And he wove that into his message again of faith when he said, we have to be about deeds too. It's not just about talk. It's now time for deeds. And then he talked about the things that we need to do and move on.
And he mentioned police community relations. He mentioned voting rights. Exactly. He mentioned gun violence. I mean, he, and that's which I thought was the most powerful messages coming out of Charleston. And that you can't stop. He tied it all together.
Exactly. I mean, he just kept it within the theme.
Peter, with the Jamal line, what I found was so much fun to watch was the reaction on the faces of the other preachers in backup.
Look, that was
when he said that, they went,
yeah.
They couldn't believe it.
Those guys behind him.
That was great. Yeah.
And you knew it was a big moment when the older guy over the president's left shoulder, he was just he had like a little cane to stand up. You knew it was a big moment when he actually stood up and clapped.
Because those are the moments without even having to say it where he's saying it.
Right.
He doesn't even have to say the race, the colors. He's just saying it in a way that, that's what happens.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man. The look on their face when he said that, and then when he started singing, and they went, whoa.
One of those guys back there stood up with a look on his face like I thought
he was in the second row.
Yeah.
Jumped up.
He jumped up so fast.
So speaking of the flag, well, there's one lady who couldn't wait for the flag to come down, right?
I know. Bree just took it on her own. I mean, that is just a perfect example of nonviolence. I mean, just do something and just do it, make the statement.
Flagpole. I've seen that flagpole. That's no little flagpole.
Yeah, she had the equipment on, I think, but
she had like a harness.
She had the harness. She got all the equipment up there. Right. But, I mean, she just took it on her own. She had her helper. I mean, a white man. And she had her helper who was there with her. And she just decided that this is what I'm going to do. And that was just a perfect statement. Unfortunately, it went back up
Yeah, they put it
immediately.
back up.
Yeah, that was the sad part.
Yeah,
but she made the statement.
She got it down.
She got it down. She made the
I
statement.
know she did. Do you think there's any way that the state legislature can leave that flag up after all that's happened?
Well, here's where I get a little hesitant. I would hope that they would not leave it up, but
The vote
think
to debate it was 103 to 10.
Well,
but that doesn't mean
that doesn't mean anything, and they
that's
also
right.
and because this is my point, because it did happen, the killings happened in South Carolina. Why couldn't South Carolina do what Alabama did, which is their governor just made an executive order? It was in the state of South Carolina where this happened, and if Nikki Haley wanted to really make a statement, there is no debate. The flag needs to come down, and that is what the governor of Alabama just decided. It's over. It's done with. I'm just going to, it's executive order. And she could have done the same thing.
Yeah.
She had the power to do the same thing. So that's where I'm a little hesitant on, is it going to happen? It's not the first time that, this has happened. And that, going back to President Obama's speech, that's what he's basically talking about, is we hope we don't, we have these moments, and then we just go back to business as usual again. And so I think she should have done the executive order, because that's what can
It'll be
kind of
tough
happen.
for them to do that. Boy, if they were smart, they'd do it like
Right now.
Yesterday.
Yes. I mean, it doesn't need debate.
Don't drag it out. Just do it.
It doesn't need any more debate.
Yeah, that's right. I'm glad you reminded. Give credit to Robert Bentley. Is his name?
Yeah, I think that's his name.
Yeah, Governor Bentley.
That was, and there wasn't a lot of coverage on that, but he just basically said, it's over, it's done, executive order, I have the power,
He
it's
just picked up
out.
the phone and said, take the flag down.
Right.
This is not complicated. Take the flag
And
down.
if she wanted to do that and not make it be about politics, because having the discussion is making it be about polite politics and giving everyone their say on, those that may want it up. If she wanted to take it out of the political realm and just do it as an act of empathy, it would have been down.
Debbie Hines is here. Yes, indeed, we are still celebrating the life of the Reverend Clement Pinckney and the other 8 who gave their lives for him, with him at Charleston, the Bible service down at the Mother Emanuel Church, and President Obama's amazing eulogy on Friday, and Vice President Joe Biden showing up at Mother Emanuel on Sunday. We'll be right back. Join the conversation at 866-55-PRESS.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Before now, it's been difficult for criminals like us to know which states have loose gun laws. How would a criminal like me know which states permit me to carry loaded guns in their amusement parks, golf courses, or beaches?
I have some violent friends. We all wear leather jackets and scream at women. And we want to find out which states we can buy and sell guns easily.
CrimAdvisor.com. That's the site to find out where it's easiest for felons and fugitives to buy, carry, and even traffic guns.
That's why I love Arizona, where I can go see the beautiful Grand Canyon and carry a loaded gun without even having to get a background check.
You would fail that background check.
I'm sure of it. Now, what about a road trip? What states can I go to fill my trunk with guns and take it back home for my even more dangerous friends?
CrimAdvisor has a list for that.
That's so unreasonable.
Our traffickers' top 10.
Nevada! What happens in Vegas may have to stay in Vegas, but your guns don't. Bring them over to California and sell them.
The market up there is hungry for guns.
I understand that CrimAdvisor.com will tell me which states really cater to us criminals and creeps, but what about the states where we're not so welcome? The ones that don't get us?
I don't even like saying the name of these states, but California, Connecticut, Maryland, and New York all have laws to keep guns out of the hands of people like us.
I want to shoot California so bad.
Boo, California.
Boo, go home. Wow. CrimAdvisor.com has all this information?
Sure does.
CrimAdvisor.com. Plan your perfect getaway. Oh, like TripAdvisor.
Oh.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend.
My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds. At highway speeds, that's enough time to travel the length of a football field. Stop the texts, stop the wrecks.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
Hey, you bet it is 11 minutes now before of the hour. The Bill Press Show on a Monday, June 29, with Debbie Hines, trial lawyer and legal analyst, here with us in studio talking about that amazing memorial service on Friday with President Obama, the preacher-in-chief, right?
Exactly.
They were calling him the Reverend President Obama. He, the way that he is so good at that cadence that you see with the black preachers. It's not. The sentence is never just a whole sentence that he just says. It's one phrase at a time.
And a pause.
And a pause, and the amens from the congregation.
And the singing of Amazing Grace, that's also something, not just the song itself, but there are many African-American preachers who do sing from the pulpit. So that was the other thing that, needs a little explaining for those that may not have had the experience. Right. There was nothing out of the ordinary there, other than it was President Obama. But from the pulpit of many black churches, it is the pastor that starts with the singing of the song and will sing.
How about the organ?
Oh, my God.
Is that also...
yes, that's a part of
the
it.
organ, lifting the preacher, right?
Yes. To just give it that extra oomph.
Boy, that guy knew when to come in. Yeah.
And we were talking about that. We were talking about how the organist, and someone actually talked to her afterwards, and she said that...
Him.
It's a him.
I saw
him.
I saw him on the news last night.
Okay.
God was speaking directly to him.
He said, some people thought that I had worked all this out with the White House ahead of time. He said, oh, no, not at all. That's just that's what he does.
Yeah.
And
Right.
he said, basically, God moved him. And the president started, and he hit those notes right away.
Which, by the way, and I know you were a member of an AME church, and I've been in plenty of black churches.
First AME in Los Angeles.
Okay.
With Chip Murray.
That's what they do. When you go to a black church, that's what the organist does. That's what they're there for. That wasn't unusual. I mean, it was unusual that it was the President of the United States, but that's what happens when you're sermonizing.
Let's say hello to Helen up in Ithaca, New York. Hey, Helen, how are you?
Good morning, everyone.
Yeah.
Amazing grace.
All right. We could do it.
So this president will have a career after he leaves the White House. He can go into the music business.
Televangelist.
No, are you kidding? He's got to have his church, his own church.
He can start a mega church.
South side of Chicago. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. But I hate to put rain on the parade, but you probably have seen in the news that in the last week, since this horrible thing happened in South Carolina, a few black churches have been burnt down,
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think maybe the Southern Poverty Law Center, I've got a lot of good ideas, but I don't have a lot of money. Put some fund together to get, I don't know, there's a lot of people here, unfortunately, with the way we're conducting our international business, are unemployed and homeless, so they could hire some people to guard these churches. And
that is a reality that's a very sad kind of, repercussion or reflection of this. Hey, Helen, good to hear from you as always. I just want to get a comment from Debbie.
Yeah, and it's also, unfortunately, it's a repeat back to our ugly past. It's not a start. It's a repeat back to our ugly past. So,
but the example of Mother Amy, if it tells anybody anything, Phoenix will rise from the ashes.
Exactly. It's just unfortunate, but it's not going to ever destroy even those churches that are being a result of arson.
I guess final comment, just about 30 seconds here, but the response of the congregation of First Amy is so powerful. The forgiveness and the love that they showed in the wake of that tragedy.
And, that's just, even as I saw that's just difficult to even imagine, but it also speaks to Clemente Pinckney of his teaching.
Mm-hmm.
Because when I thought of that church, I thought of oh my God, that could be my mom. My mom used to always go on Wednesday Bible study. I mean, my dad had this saying, do you have to be down at the church every time the door is open? And so for that older woman that died, I was thinking, I don't know if I could have had that type of grace to say, I forgive you.
Yeah.
Immediately after.
Amazing. Hi, good. Debbie, always good to see you,
Thank you,
especially
same
today.
here.
Thanks so much for coming in, okay? And I'll wrap things up with a quick parting shot when we come back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
A few years ago, plastic bag waste in our city came to a tipping point. It was clear we had a bag problem. My department was tasked to reduce plastic bag consumption. We needed to come up with ways to change human behavior. So we asked ourselves,
should I get back?
What do people really hate?
Yep.
Getting punched in the stomach. Preliminary studies showed that the consequences weren't severe enough to warrant behavioral change.
Actually, can I get that double bagged?
So we thought, what do people hate more than getting punched in the stomach? Kissing Helga.
Hey, big boy.
People didn't find her so offensive after all, so we had to get creative.
How many bags? Okay, now, pour this ice water down your pants.
We tried everything.
Eat the threat. Defuse this bomb.
Even fighting your clone. After blowing through millions of dollars of government funds on research, I came up with a brilliant idea.
Why don't we just charge 5 cents per bag?
That's a stupid idea.
Would you like a bag?
Yes.
5 cents a bag.
5 cents? 5 cents? Do I still have the option of getting punched?
Honestly, I don't know how everyone else missed it.
Why don't you just get a reusable bag?
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, stand. Because it needs a good leader.
The Parting Shot with Bill Press. This is the Bill Press Show.
Hey, I don't know about you, but I'm a liberal and I feel like I just won the lottery 3 times in a row. Yeah, first across the South, the Confederate flag, a symbol of racial hatred for so many Americans, was taken down once and for all. Next, from the Roberts Court, a stunning defense of the Affordable Care Act, the Chief Justice himself writing that decision that poor people in all 50 states ought to be able to get subsidies from the federal government. And then a historic reaffirmation by the same Roberts Court that equal rights under the Constitution should indeed be enjoyed by all Americans, including LGBT Americans who want to get married. 3 great victories. It's a good time to be a liberal. It's a great time to be an American. That's it for today, folks. Thanks so much for joining us. Have a great Monday. And I'm off to the Supreme Court, but I'll be looking for you back here again tomorrow.
This is the
See you
Bill
then.
Press Show.